had these big, huge old bolt cutters that they have for the prisons. And I smashed this window. There was a cop on the other side of the window that came running to like stop me from coming through. I was scared to death, dude. I hit that window and the whole window just flipped out, hit the ground. And it was probably the most athletic I ever was to that point in my life. But I jumped through the window, rolled and came up, and that cop hauled ass. I would have hit him so hard, them fucking bolt cutters, there was nobody that was stopping. I could hear the cop cars coming.
You didn't even know that you were about to get released then, before you escaped?
There must have been like 50, 60 COs in there. And they just beat us.
So you lost your virginity in prison.
When you're a human being that has actually been restrained and chained to a floor, where people can come in and do things to you, ain't nothing gonna bother me after that.
John Moore was already in jail for kidnapping and robbery when things spiraled even further out of control. After fighting and causing problems inside the jail, he made a desperate move. He escaped and went on the run in New York, a decision that would eventually cost him 32 years behind bars.
I originally am from Connecticut. I was born in Bristol, but I live up in Rochester with my wife and children. She's a school teacher up there, and so I've been up there since I've been out.
And Bristol's not too far from here.
Oh, it isn't? That's what I was going to ask you. I'm not quite sure where I'm at, because I'm going to go visit a couple. I want to see my grandmother's grave while I'm here, my grandfather's grave. I haven't seen it. I have not been here in Connecticut without being either on parole or on the run from an escape or in prison in the back of a paddy whacking since I was 16 years old. It's the first time, like when I crossed the border last night coming from New York, I looked at Aaron and said, fuck, man, I'm not on parole. I'm not on nothing. I'm going into Connecticut. So I'm going to go to, because I'm from the Torrington, Barkhamsted, Winston area. That's where Litchfield County. That's where I came out of. And then now I'm up in Rochester.
What was your upbringing like?
Not bad at all. I guess like everybody from my generation, I had it rough. My mother was raised by two people from the World War II era that had, my grandfather fought in World War II. My grandmother was, she was during the Great Depression. So, and my grandmother was she was a wonderful woman, but she was, in 1940 something, she was on Broadway as not a burlesque dancer, but like a dancer that would dance with all the high class guys. And then she met my grandfather, and then they had my mother. But my mother was very strict, and she had to be, because I was born. I had forceps or whatever it is. I had a lot of birth defects when I was born, and I had extreme ADHD, hyperactivity. That was before they had any diagnosis for that. So my mother didn't know what to do. So she was real strict with me. And then, and she had her own issues. And my grandfather was like her everything. And then he passed away. And when he passed away, I got molested from her side of the family, because we started dealing with her cousins and stuff. And I started getting molested on and off from a cousin. And with the learning disabilities, with the hyperactivity, with the very strict religious mother who became religious as time went on. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about my mother. I love my mother. She did the best she could. She raised me. I wouldn't be here without her. But she had to be real hard on me. She had a kid who had all these problems, and then he was molested, and behaviorally, I started stealing. I started just lying constantly. I never told anybody anything. It changed who I was. And I went through the school system. I got kicked out of school at like 6th grade. Sixth, 7th. I went to 7th grade, and I never went to any other grade after that. The school took me out, and they put me in a mental, whatever you want to call it, for the youth. It was at it was in Hartford, and it was a place for the youth. And that kind of introduced me to people that were like me. Because before, I know I'm kind of jumping around. I'm trying to give you a brief. Before I met these people, I had only met people from church and people that were pretending to be good, but were really pieces of shit on the low. And they were always judging me because, again, I'd smoke. I was a Mormon. My mother was a Mormon. My father was a Mormon. And so there's a lot of strictness with that. So it was, so I met people that were like me, and I said, shit, I'm not the only one that's fucked up. So when I came out of the mental youth home, whatever you want to call it, I was probably around 13. And I had just, and my mother and me were not getting along at all because I didn't want to hear anything she had to say because I got a taste of people that were like me, people that had problems, people that listened to me, people that weren't what they were trying to show me the world was. They were actually broken people like me, and I wanted to be around them. I didn't want to be around my family no more. I wanted to be around people that, if I wanted to smoke a cigarette, I could smoke a cigarette. If I wanted to pierce my ears, I could pierce my ears. If I want, I wanted to be a kid. And I wasn't allowed to do that because of all my, one thing led to another, and I started running away from home. And that never ends up good. Even though I was in a small town, again, I was raised in Barkhamsted. Dude, Barkhamsted's a one-horse town. Back then, it was Route 219. There was nobody around. I had no friends. I never went to any party. No childhood friends. I have none. Absolutely none. Didn't have any then, don't have any now. Never had any. The kids that I hung out with in Torrington and Winsted, like if you looked at my police reports, what would happen is I would go and live with them, or I lived with this one lady. I would run away from my home and I'd live with her, and she'd have us steal stuff so that we could stay there. And then, so they were real great citizens that I lived with. And then one thing led to another, and then people would get caught and they'd go, oh, well, John Moore did it. And the police in Torrington and Winsted, I already had a reputation from stupid stuff like, my mother calling the police because I ran away from home, and they'd see me on my dirt bike riding down the road. So you get arrested for something stupid. Everything I ever did was stupid. I never committed a crime in the street that made any sense. It was just a kid that was wilding out that had a lot of fucked up mental problems and didn't know what to do and didn't have anybody to talk to, and nobody understood. And I didn't understand. So it was a train wreck ready to happen, and I was afraid. I wasn't afraid, but I knew that at the end of the day, I was either going to go to the military or I was going to go to prison. Or dead. There was no in between. And again, I was in small towns, Torrington, Winsted. That's not any city stuff. But when you're on your own and you're a kid, even in these small little towns, there's an underworld. There's a that'll take advantage or whatever. So I started doing petty crimes. At one point we were stealing hood ornaments. When they used to have hood ornaments on the top of the cars where they used to stick up out of the hood, we were pulling them off. Stealing clothes out of cars to survive. And I had a girlfriend, and I stole a jacket out of a car, and then she got caught stealing something and told them that I did it, and I got a warrant for it. And then I'd have the cops would try to come and get me, and every time they'd come to get me, I'd run away. I'd get away from them in Torrington. And I didn't like that, especially when you're 14, 15, 16 years old and you're jumping in cars and stealing them, and they can't catch you on the highway. You're 15 years old. The cop is a professional. He's supposed to be able to get you. So they didn't like that. And so they started to really push to get me. And then one thing led to another. And I ended up at 16. My school, like I said, I got kicked out of school. I had a private tutor here and there. When I was at home, I was going to I'd have 2 hours of a tutor, and then they'd send me to this adult mental outpatient clinic where I'd sit there and get counseling about drug addiction and sex addiction and you name it. And I had none of that. I was 14 years old. You had me in a room. The school district had me in a room full of adults. They were all fucked up like I am now as a kid. It never made no sense to me. I think it helped shape who I became. I wanted to. So I ended up committing petty crimes. The cops kept trying to get me. A couple times I got caught. I'd escape. Couple small little juvenile lockups. I'd get out. And then a judge emancipated me one day because I got arrested in Torrington for calling in a bomb threat as a kid in the bowling alley. Somebody dared me, hey, it's before I go by Jay as my nickname, but back then everybody called me John and whatever. It was a prison thing, but I called up there's a bomb here, and we ran away, and they told on me, and then they arrested me. So I went before a judge. My parents weren't there, and the judge was like, look, you're always coming in here anyways. You're 16 years old, and he just signed it off. You can do it on your own. And then after that, I never saw my family again, free until I got out. Because 4 months later, I was I was in jail. And I escaped from them twice before they actually got me. The last one was the worst crime that I had went to jail for was it was a carjacking that they said was a kidnapping. And it's the only crime, I got to be honest with you, it's the only crime I don't like. I never liked it. I always felt bad about it. The only one. And I was on the run from the cops. I had stole the car the night before because they kept chasing me. I didn't want to go to jail. I kept running. All I knew how to do was run. And I think that had to do with being molested. I think that when you're molested or you have some kind of trauma, your main focus is to run. You never want to stay where you're being tortured at, So I would run, and they didn't like it. So long story short, I got into a police chase. I had broke into a house because they were chasing us as kids. I broke into a house with a buddy of mine. We found some guns, and my plan. Anyways, I can't say that, but we found the guns, and long story short, the cops are on us. I get into a police chase. I end up running in the back of an IGA grocery store, and I opened up it was a truck. I opened up the door, and I pulled the gun on it was a lady, and I pulled the gun on her, and I told her I was taking her truck. And instead of having her get out right then and there, she slid over into the passenger seat. I'm on the run. I'm a kid. When I did this, I opened up the gun and I showed her there was bullets and everything in it. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like in a fog. I just needed that vehicle. I had to get the fuck out of there. So she slid over in the seat and we took off and I let her go. Never touched her. I know I told her I think I told her I was I don't know what I was going to do. I was scared to death. But it's the one, I paid my time for it, so I can talk about it. I'm not going to mention no names. That was the one crime I didn't like. But all the other ones, I didn't give a fuck about. The petty larcenies, I didn't care. It didn't bother me.
So what happens with that? You guys are on the run, and how do they catch you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I have her in the car and I drive up the road and she tells me that, she was in the military and she says something about her family or whatever. And she said, I have kids. And I pulled over and I let her out. And I told her, don't call the cops on me. She must have ran up the road and called the cops on me right away. Because I went to pick up my friend that I had broken into the houses with that day. And when I pulled up to pick him up, a cop was coming by this way. And he seen the truck and he seen me as the kid was getting into the truck and he hit his lights. So I hit the gas and took off. And in Winsted, it's the main road in Winsted. I can't remember the name. There's a church. It's a 4-way section. And the cops were looking for me for a good couple hours at that point. And I came flying down this road in this truck in the 4-way. And there must have been 25 state trooper cars there at the red light. So as I'm driving, and if there's one thing I knew how to drive because my father taught me how to drive when I was like a kid. So I could drive any vehicle, anything, standard, automatic. Only thing I never flew was a flying machine. You know what I mean? So I'm coming into the intersection, and the kid's next to me. He's like, "What are you gonna do?" So I swerved around it. It was a red light, and I just went flying. As soon as I went through that intersection, all them lights lit up. I'm driving. I'm trying to look for somewhere to pull off to. And we had just had a snowstorm. So I'm trying to find somewhere where I can pull off to, pull the truck into, get out and run. Because once I'm out of that vehicle on foot, you're not catching me. Back then, I didn't give a fuck who you were. I was a skinny kid. I ran track. I raced BMX. I was athletic. You were not catching me. And I knew how to hide because I lived in the woods. So mad cop cars behind me. So I'm driving. I see a road. I cut up the side of the road. And I told Alan, I said, hold on. And I seen it was like a little mound going into somebody's yard. It was an open field. And I must have been doing 80, maybe more in that truck. I don't know. But I hit this mound in that fucking truck and we launched. And when I hit, I don't know how I didn't die and he didn't die because I smashed into the steering wheel boom, and I came back. His head went into the windshield. The whole front of the truck was smashed into a tree, and the cops were coming over, smashing into the back of me. We jumped out. I kicked the door, and I got out my side of the thing, and I took off. And this was it was a couple streets in back of the Winston Hospital. It was up a hill. I remember because I had to run up the hill, big steep hill, and in the woods, and I had the guns on me. And that was, I turned around now in my what do they call that when they give you the description of the crimes? You know, they give you the whole
Like indictment or?
Yeah, well, the original one, like with the arrest warrant,
Okay.
it talks about I turned around and fired. Now, I don't remember if I did or I didn't, but it does say that on the paper. So I was like, well, shit, did I fire? I don't remember. I remember I fired the gun later on, but I don't really honestly remember if that was, So anyway, so I get away from them, and Alan gets away from them. Surprisingly enough, all these fucking cops, and they can't catch you again. Back then, I just think they were just big dumb idiots or something. If they didn't have information, they weren't going to get you. Like, we were gone.
How did he get his head out of the window or the windshield?
Well, he just hit his window, and it like
Okay.
smashed his whole front of his head was all bloody. It's, you know how the window's got the protective thing. He smashed it and pushed it in and came back. And I remember going, oh my God, are you all right? What am I going to do? There's cops everywhere. I'm getting out of there. Like, you can either run or get caught. At this point, I'm getting away. It's every man for himself. I didn't know if he got away because I didn't see him for hours until later. So I take off in my own direction, and I'm sneaking around, and there's cops everywhere. And in Winston and Torrington, you're in the woods, and then you got like little teeny, I don't know if you've ever been up there, they're little teeny, kind of like here, little towns, little back roads. And I had a friend that worked at a Dunkin' Donuts. And this is when like Dunkin' Donuts was first becoming big. It used to be Best Eaten. They have the drive-thrus. Drive-thrus were just becoming a big. So I snuck all the way back from there, snuck across the street, and I seen that he was working. And I went around, and I knocked on the window, and there was cop cars all in the Dunkin' Donuts. And I'm looking, and I knocked on the window, and he came to the window, and he goes, get away. So I got away, and they took off, and I came back, and I said, listen, I got to get out of here. They're going to kill me. He goes, where do you want to go? And he would have taken me anywhere. Anywhere in the world that kid would have took me. And I would say he's a friend from the past. I never talked to him again, but he put me in his caravan under all his brothers and sisters. He had like 12 brothers and sisters. All their dirty clothes was in the caravan. So I got in there and got underneath him. He goes, where do you want to go? I went right. I said, bring me to Torrington. Well, that's where they were going to look for me. So I went back to Torrington. He snuck me out. There were roads closed and everything. He snuck me right out. They all knew him. Again, it's a one-horse town. They all knew him. He worked at the Dunkin' Donuts. He drove me into Torrington. I got out. He wished me luck. The guns that I had, I went and got rid of them. And I met a kid that night that I knew. He had a Volkswagen Bug. And I needed somewhere to stay. It was freezing outside. It's the middle of winter. So I got in the back of the Volkswagen Bug, and I remember I was so tired. I'd been on the run for days, and when you run, your adrenaline, when you finally get a chance to chill, you crash, and when you crash dead to the world. So I fell asleep in the back of this Volkswagen Bug. Now, I never got high. I never drank back then. Like, no drugs were ever part of any of the insanity that I ever did. I was just crazy just 'cause. Like, it was, So I fell asleep in the back of the Volkswagen Bug, and I guess he had been drag racing people up and down Main Street all night long. I'm sleeping out. They pull us over. Remember the cop waking me up. So I get up. Everybody, when I get out of the car, is all in the police cars, and the cop goes, "What's your name?" So I gave him a name that I always used. It was a kid that I went to school with, so I gave him his name. It was always an alias that I used. I don't know why. I could remember the name. So the cop knew me. I had a leather jacket on. The cop knew who I was, and he looked at me. He goes, "Yeah, okay." So he reaches into the Volkswagen Bug, and he pulls out like a bat, and it had like nails in it and some. He goes, "Well, what's this?" I said, "Well, what the fuck do I know? I was sleeping. You woke me up. I wasn't driving." So he goes, another cop car pulls up when he's questioning me. When the other cop car pulls up, he jumps out and he pulls out his gun. He goes, Mr. Moore, don't move. And I was like, oh. Because you got to remember, I had just had the kidnapping, and so there's a manhunt for me. So I'm standing, I get the leather jacket on, they search me. He reaches in my pocket, and he pulls out bullets from the guns. So they freak out with that. So he's standing there, he's got the gun on me. I'm in the middle of the street. It's probably like 3 a.m. The cop that's searching the Volkswagen turns around and goes to the cop with the gun. He goes, hey, hold this. So the cop with the gun goes, oh, puts it down and goes to reach for it, and I spun and took off. And when I took off, that cop was like, oh, shit, he's running. Couldn't catch me. I heard him fall on the ground or whatever. I ended up sleeping in a pigeon coop for most of that night. And then I went to a house that I stayed in. It was like I guess you'd call it like a flop house. I just stayed in there anytime. It was all of us runaway, abandoned kids stayed there. And that's where they ended up catching me the next morning, because when I went in the house to stay, I asked the kids that were in there, like, yo, anybody here? They were like, no, the cops left, you're good. But they just went downstairs and called the cops. So when the cops came in, I was underneath the bed. And I tell you the truth, dude, I don't know how I haven't been killed time and time again, because when you pull the mattress back, my fucking luck, there's a water gun right there. And the guy's like, he's got a gun. I'm like, I got no gun, please, please. So there's lights everywhere, and they drag me out of there, put me in the car. And as soon as I get in the car, handcuffed, jackass cop comes up and goes, you remember me? I'm going to break your legs. You hurt me when you run. You think you're fast. So they started threatening me. They bring me to the city lockups or whatever. I get arraigned, and that was that part. I end up going to, where do I go? I go to HCC. I was telling you about the Ewings. So I had a pair of navy blue back then Patrick Ewings. They had just come out, had a little 33. They were like the shit to have, I guess. And I go into the county jail, and very first day I go in, I'm there. Kid walks up to me, asks me what gang I was in, and that's when Connecticut was in the height of their gang. They had, oh God, what they have? They had the Latin Kings. We can say the names out?
Yeah.
Okay. They had the Latin Kings. They had the Solids. The Solids weren't around there. They had Nation, Brotherhood. 20 Love was out of Hartford. There was like a million of them in Connecticut. It used to be Elm City, but then it became like something different. I don't know. It's just 1,000 different gangs they had. So you had to join a gang or you had to fight, I learned. And that very first day I had them sneakers on. They came up to me and, what gang are you with? And I was like, I'm not with a gang. And the next thing I know, I had 6 of them on top of me, beating the shit out of me. Boom, boom, boom. Took my sneakers, the whole 9 yard. Peed on me, left me in the fucking corner. So, what do you do? It was my first exposure to prison. I hadn't really formulated who I was. I hadn't built. I was 16, just turned 16. I turned 16 in June. This is like November, dude. It wasn't like, you know what I mean? I was never even around any like real hardcore criminals. This was my first. So, yeah, I got jumped. So they come and get me, bring me to the hospital, whatever, but they end up putting me in the same block and in the same cell because I was 16 again. So they didn't have a lot of places for people like us back then, especially in these areas. Like the lockups and stuff didn't really have, they'd have like a little wing for the youth or whatever, but they didn't have like, MYI was the big one. And I was in MYI, and that's a fucking cesspool of hell. But it just was one thing after another. Like my story is so long with this. It comes, like I remember parts and then I want to jump over to here. So it's hard for me to, but I ended up in the lockup, and I ended up in the cell with the white kid that started the whole thing. And he was in a black gang. And so, it was just fighting. And then I ended up going into the day room with all of them. And it's tough to have to go to sleep in a cell when a kid jumped you with his boys. And if you do anything at this point, dude, you went to jail. You're not, you looked like I looked when I went to prison. You saw my pictures. I was a skinny little white kid, dude. I wasn't I wasn't a gangster. But I was forced to be. I was forced to be. Somebody that I shouldn't have been. Somebody. I'm sorry, bud. I didn't think I was going to get emotional on that. I because I'm thinking about it as I'm talking. I didn't think that I was going to become that or be put in that situation. I didn't know what to do. So I fought. I fought because that's all I knew how to do. I just threw my feet and my hands and my head, and I just run at him. I didn't give a fuck. I'd grab a stool, I'd bite, I'd scratch, and we went into the day room, and I was like, well, I'll fight every one of you one-on-one, and I did. And I was beating them, and they didn't like that, so they whooped my ass again. So they took me to HCC, which is in Hartford. HCC, they put me in a wing, and again, here it is. These are half of them are all adults. They're 21, they're 22. They're all black, not to be, but it's the truth. I was white. They were all black kids. They were all from the hood, and they all knew somebody. And, time and time again, I watch the podcast and I hear the black dudes, they'll tell you, white dudes go to jail. They got a problem. I don't give a fuck who you are. White dudes go to jail. They have a problem from day one, and it don't make a difference if you're respectful or if you're not. A lot of them fold, and it's not easy to not fold. I've I've fought, and I've folded, and I've run, and I've hid, and I've also stood out there like, what do y'all want to do? But at different stages of my life. That was just pure survival. It's such a numbing moment in my brain. And then the COs were down with the gangs. So as soon as you got into it with one of the gangs in these little city jails, they were cracking your shell for these guys to come get you. And again, I'm a little skinny 16-year-old white kid, dude. They stole my sneakers, so I didn't have anything else. It was the only thing that I owned. What the fuck did they want to bug me for? Like, I didn't even bother anybody. I was afraid to go eat. Like, I was a mouse. I would ask for a cigarette because we smoked in cigarettes back then. So I'd, bum a cigarette or whatever. I didn't have no money or no family. And it was just fight after fight after fight. So long story short, I ended up in NYI. And by the time I get to NYI, I'm completely crazy. I've been in and out of Seg. And these Seg cells back then are not like what these guys see now. These were like HCC had a square pad in the middle of the cell. And the lights were on 24 hours a day, and it was cold in there, and you were naked, and if you acted up, they'd chain you to the fucking bed, like chain you, for hours and leave you there. They'd pipe noise in there to fuck with you because they used to have old little speakers and stuff, or they'd you got everybody in Seg screaming and yelling. At 16, 17 years old, you're fighting every day. It's madness. It probably sounds like madness when I'm explaining it because that's exactly what it was. Every day. Nonstop, like every single day, dude. I swear to God, I did not have a day where there wasn't some kind of something. Somebody was at my door. They wanted to fuck me. They wanted me to go and stab somebody. They wanted money that I didn't have. They wanted, like, every fucking day. I don't know anybody. I don't really know how to talk to anybody because I didn't really have communication skills to begin with. I'm a hick from whatever. Now I'm thrown into the city and I'm like, what the fuck? But this goes back to my mother. My mother, I couldn't read when I was a kid or write. I couldn't spell. I couldn't read. And it wasn't that I didn't understood. I just would look at it and it didn't make any sense to me. Now, when I was a kid, if I'm going too far, let me know.
No, you're doing great.
When
Yeah.
I was a kid, I had like a crib death, and my brain was shut off for a minute, I guess. And my niece has the same thing. She had it years later, and it's very similar in my family. Me and her have it, and it did something. And it took me a lot of years. Now I can read, I can write, I can do all that. But there was a long time nothing made sense. So my mom used to take, and she'd be like, "Okay, here's a bottle of water. You see what this looks like?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." She'd be like, "Go in the store and find that for me." I'd go in the store and I'd find it and bring it out. So observation skills and not being able to read and write, I had to learn how to be able to read the room or read the situation, or know that sometimes if I couldn't read, I had to somehow explain to you, you know what I mean? Like I had to learn how to adapt to the situation, I guess, not being able to have them other skills. So I would talk to people here and there, and I'd start learning. It was rough in the beginning because back in Connecticut, this is in Connecticut, and Connecticut's prison system compared to New York's prison system is Connecticut was never as violent. Like I thought I was going to physically die at points in New York, because in New York, they kill you. In Connecticut, they cut you. Inmates. There's deaths, but there's not like the abundance. I was in a jail in New York that 8 people will die a year. I mean, for a prison, that's a lot of people, you know? So Connecticut was, but mentally, and the way that they mentally fuck with their inmates, bar none, they are the greatest in the world. They torture you in Connecticut prison. Everything they do is to torture you somehow. At least back then. Now they've implemented some stuff that I think has made people too soft. And I'm not mad that I went through these things. I'm glad. But the skills that my mom gave me by teaching me how to do stuff is what helped me learn in the prison. Well, okay, maybe if I do this differently, maybe if I do that. These are skills that I feel that's what helped me. Her teachings in that. So that's why I'll revert back to her. So skip forward a little bit here through the HCC, traveling back and forth. I got transferred every day in Connecticut for a year. Every day on the bus. Every day. Because everywhere I would go, I'd get into a fight immediately. As soon as I'd get there, I got to a point where I'd get into the, and it wasn't just black dudes. Like, sometimes I'd be like, yeah, but it was the white dudes in Connecticut, because they were all up the black dudes' asses because they wanted to survive in prison. And then they were all up the Puerto Rican guys' asses because they had the numbers. Like it was, and I didn't want to be up any of their asses. I didn't want to deal with any of them. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So they started putting me in MHU, mental stuff, giving you pills. Because back then, if you had a lot of violence, they thought you were crazy. So they would pump you with drugs. And if you didn't take it, they'd come in and they'd hold you down and they'd shoot you with a needle. Or they'd put you in whatever nearest criminally insane mental hospital they had, and they'd fuck with you in there. So I've been to a few of them in and out. And I was in MYI, and it was towards the end of my stay at MYI. I went to see a doctor one time, and they had me on so much medication. I mean, I would just piss on myself. I didn't, I had no. They had me on Haldol, Thorazine, lithium, you name it. They just kept pumping me with drugs, and I'd be in my cell all day long, or I'd have a cellie, and it, dude, for me to explain that type of, I don't know that I can explain. I think you have to experience that craziness. If anybody was in MYI back then, they'll know exactly what the fuck I'm saying. So I went to see this doctor, and I guess I went in and I was drooling on myself and I pissed on myself, and she went crazy. She said, "They're trying to kill you. I don't know what they're doing." They took me off all these meds. So I started to come out of my cloud a little bit, because for like a good year or two now, I'm in jail like 89. This is when this starts, 89, 90. This is about 91. I'm starting to like come out of my mental fog or whatever. I'm starting to realize a little bit more what's going on in prison here. 91. So I'm in MYI, and I ended up tying this kid to his bed and beating him with. They had these soaps. We used to get these big bars of white soap, and I crushed them up, and I put them in a bunch of socks, because if you wet it, you could beat somebody with it for a lot of hours and not leave bruises, but you could hurt them. And I got lucky, and I tied this black kid to his bed that I lived with. Him and his boys kept jumping me. They jumped me like 4 or 5 times for no reason. Again, dude, for what reason? They'd put you in a cell. There'd be 2 guys in a bed, and then they'd have you on the floor in a bunk in an 8x10 with a solid door and a glass. These are 2 20-year-old black kids from Hartford and Bridgeport that are gangbangers, and I'm a white kid from fucking Barkhamsted. What do you think's gonna happen? So I got a chance. I tied this kid to his bed, and I beat this cocksucker all night. Beat him, tortured him, beat him, fucker. They kicked me out of MWI for that. Never let me go back. And I ended up in Litchfield County Jail. And back then, Litchfield County Jail it was the oldest jail, and it was the only jail to ever be connected to a bank. The original part of the jail is connected to a bank. There's 3 parts of this jail. There's a minimum, there's a medium, and then there's a max. Now, they don't talk about the max part hardly at all when they talk about Litchfield County Jail, because the max part was really kind of like, that's where they put the worst of the worst, and they wanted to hide it. And I'm talking about violent worst of the worst to sex offender worst of the worst. Now, I'm a 17 because I escaped when I was 18, and I was there for a year. It's right across the street from the court that I go to. It's in my county, but this is like so this jail is so old, they don't have power in the cells. So we used to have to, you take a candle and you cut it out and put some baby oil in it and you make a candle. You could do it with soap. We used to have our own candles to have power to read at night or whatever. And you could smoke in the prisons at that point. But there were no power in any of the cells down there. And they were locked cells where you'd go in your cell, bars, they'd shut the door, they'd lock it with a key, and then they'd hit it with what do they call it? A bolt lock. I can't think right now. It's on the old galleys. You pull them, and then they'll open all the cells. So when you're in at night, all single bunk. And some of the cells are a cell like that, but no sink and no toilet. So it's a dry cell, but they keep people in there because they'll let you go to the bathroom at night or whatever. It's usually separate. So I was there, and it was the worst of the worst kind of people on that part. And I had a high bond again because I was an asshole. I would keep running from the cops. There wasn't a single time that they would get me that I wasn't gone. Not only did I not like the inmates, I didn't like the cops. So I was kind of fucked either way. So I get to this Litchfield County Jail, and it was like pouring gasoline on a fire. So there was a kid there that I knew from MYI named whatever. Off and on buddy of mine. And there is not a single day in that jail that I wasn't tortured mentally, physically, or spiritually. And that's not no joke. I tried to escape from that jail 3 times. I tried to dig out one time above a cell. Me and my boy tried to dig out. We were all the way to the very last brick to kick it out and go. When the guy snitched on it and caught it. So it was after I'd been there so long, I was tired, and I was in Seg, and they kept keeping me in these dry cells where they would lock me in. And I don't understand why they'd lock me in these cells. It'd be a single cell with no sink, no toilet, but I'd be back there with 2 of the most vicious motherfuckers that were in Connecticut, locked in there. Dude, I'm 16. These guys are 40, 50. They've been, they can't go nowhere else. They're there because they're trying to, how the state don't know what to do with them. And you're putting a young kid around them. And I tell my wife a lot. I say, they did that. They do that because they throw fish to the, they throw fish to the old timers. Back then they used to. These were guys that they wanted to keep calm. Same reason why they give conjugal visits to people in New York prison, because they want to keep the lifers calm. So I wasn't a fish. I would fight and bite. So you weren't gonna, I'm not, whatever it was. But I was a jerk too, and I got into it with the cops. Long story short, again, I want to get to the escape because I had this one cop that I didn't like. And I tried to escape from this jail 3 times. One time I climbed the galley, came out of lockdown and climbed the galley. I had COs swinging off my feet. Guys cheering, but the same guys that would cheer for me to act crazy were the same guys that would pick on me. And I don't like to say that like I was bullied or I was picked on, because I like to have a persona about myself years later that, I'm a man. You're not going to, but I was picked on at one point in my life. There's no question about it. And I had to learn how not to be picked on because I wasn't going home. I had to learn how to survive, and I wasn't going to PC. I didn't even know what the fuck that was back then. I learned about that stuff later on. I would have did it probably if I would have realized that I might have had a better go. But then I would see, like years later, I would see them places and they're worse than population. So no matter what, when you're in that fucking house, and it don't matter how long you're in it, when you're in it and you're in them bad areas, you understand, So I ended up throwing water on this cop. They bring me to this seg cell. Now, the seg cell's downstairs. It's as wide as a mattress. You know how the prison mattresses are. It's as long as a mattress. It's as wide as a mattress. It's behind, and it's round. The cell is round. It's a dry cell. It's on the floor. It looked like going into the basement. You have like a little closet. It's got metal bars, and then in between the metal bars, probably like as wide as your rug with the white part right there, a big solid red door with slots in it. No lights. Can't stand up in this fucking thing. This is their seg cell from like the 1800s. You're only supposed to do a few hours in there. I was in there for 6 months, and I would have to beg to go to the bathroom. Dude, there wasn't enough room. You couldn't stand up, kid. You couldn't. If they don't let you go to the bathroom, you're shitting and pissing exactly where you're sleeping, bro. Food, you're lucky if you feed you. Especially, I assaulted a cop. There's no cameras. There's nobody to cry to. There's nobody to talk to. There ain't no wardens or captains or mommies. Nothing. I'm in that cell 24 hours a day, begging to go to the bathroom, shitting and pissing right where that jail's still there. It's a restaurant now. I'm going to see what it looks like.
I seen that restaurant.
I want to meet the owners.
Wow.
I'm the last guy to escape from there. They shut that jail down because of me. Because when they went in there, it was a human rights violation. They were like, "What the fuck is this place?"
Wow.
I was in the cell that they used to chain me to the floor in. They'd leave me in the cell for no. I mean, you'd be sleeping at night on your mattress if you could. There'd be bugs crawling across you. There'd be mice. Have to beg a cop to go to the bathroom, then they'd bring you up to the bathroom. And they had a little cop office, and then there'd be like a little bullpen area. And I knew the bullpen area real well because they kept me in there for like 3 months when I first got arrested years before, because I was too young to go into population, so they kept me there. So I knew that area real well. I lived in there. They let me go to the bathroom, and it was a bullpen area where next to the AP room where it had escape fence metal. You know what I'm talking about. And you had security, they'd let you out, buzz you through, and then there'd be another one, a red door with a big window. That's when you went into the bullpen area where they'd let the guys who were in these cells pee. And then they'd have their little place where they take your pictures. All old, very old. So when I was in this cell, I didn't know what to do. I had that kid I mentioned before, and he'd come to the cell and talk to me every once in a while through the holes. People would come by and try to tell me, "Why don't you just calm down, bro? Why don't you just calm down? Things will get better." I pissed everybody off one night because they let me out of the cell for wreck. I had a cop. There was some cops that would come on that would be decent human beings and be like, "Hey, we're going to give you your hour rec. You've been in here for like 2 weeks. You haven't aired out. You stink. We're going to let you get a shower, clean up the poop on your floor, and run around." So what I chose to do was come out and break the they had the for the fire extinguishers, they had the pipe, and I jumped up and pulled that fucker down and flooded the whole jail. That's what I chose to do with my hour. So they came and, cleaned it up, beat me up, put me back in the cell. I'm a slow learner, I guess. I don't know. So the kid kept coming by my cell and talking to me. So one day, it was the same kid that I had tried to escape with. I'm not going to say his name. He's still incarcerated because he was in jail for, he had a murder case. So he had a completely different case than I was in jail for. I just knew him from jail. And he was kind of like me, where he was, learning jail, but he was a little bit hardened. They liked him a little bit more. He was older. He did drugs. Again, I didn't get high. Dude, I read the Bible before I went to prison. You know what I mean? I read the Book of Mormon. I went to Boy Scouts. I was a bad kid, but I was only a bad kid for this much time, not my whole life. Just I did bad moments. So he came by one day and I was like, yo, I'm gonna escape. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. I can't do this no more. And he was like, well, how are you gonna do it? So I said, well, they let me out of here. Out of this to go to the bathroom and go into the AP room. I said, I know when I go into the AP room, there's a cabinet that's got bolt cutters in it. I knew everything in that AP room because, again, when they used to test you when you went to prison, they'd give you like a school test to see where you were. I couldn't read or write, so I would always test like I was a retard. I don't know if I could use that, but you could edit it out. But I would test literally like I was mentally retarded. It would say low intelligence. So they thought I was stupid, but I wasn't. I was far from stupid. I didn't learn the way they learned. So I'd be in that office looking at everything. You got to remember, I always was into escape. I always wanted to escape. I never wanted to be there. So I said, I know how to get out of here. Get me a piece of metal. So back then they used to have the mop buckets. And one of the reasons why Connecticut don't have them anymore either, with the metal rod that goes. So he brought me one of them suckers and slid it under the door. I got it. I sharpened it. I broke it. Kept, bending it back and forth. You get it hot enough, it'll snap. Then you sharpen that fucker on the wall for hours. Keep sharpening it. It gets so hot, your fingers bleed. You got to be, I tell everybody all the time, because dudes, I'll go shank that dude up. You got to be mad to make a knife. Like a knife out of nothing. Like in this room, I'll play a game. What would you use for a weapon if you needed one right away? I'd beat you to death with the microphone. You know what I mean? Like, you got to think. So I sharpened that thing. I was so mad. And I told Chris, I said, it's got to be the right cop, because there was one CO that was real nice to me, kind, let me out, give me something to eat. Never a dick. Didn't like what was going on. I had this one boy. He was a tough bird. And I waited for him to come on, and he came down that night. It was like 11. Just before shift change was when I escaped. March 13th, 1992, I escaped. 12 o'clock 11 or 12. Like, it was right at when you see it and read it, it'll tell you it's right, And I was in the cell. Cop came down. I'm trying not to use names. Cop came down, and I asked him, I said, hey, they got to open the red door and look in. You all right in there, more? Yeah, can I use the bathroom? He goes, I'll fucking see if I have time. And he never really ever used to let me out. Once in a while, if I really fucking, come on, man, please, I'm begging you. I had to really beg this cocksucker to let me out. And you got to think about the type of human being that would look at a kid, even if you didn't like him, dude. I had been in that jail. He knew me. I was 18 at that time, so, I'd gone in at 16. Now I'm 18. Still not sentenced in the courts, going back and forth to court. So I never was in state facility. I was never in the, the main part at this point. I was only in the county jails of Connecticut. And then they combine them, so it gets kind of confusing. So he'd come down and he said, I'll let you out when I'm done with my check. See, whatever, it was like a half hour. I don't fucking remember. So he came back down, and I was so scared, dude, shaking inside. I had the ice pick stuck in my pants, and I had that gray sweatshirt, and I forget what kind of blue khakis I think we had. and I had black state boots on and state, whatever, all state shit, nothing, and I had like I think I had like a little chook, the little knit hats. So he comes down and he goes, all right, I'm gonna let you go to the bathroom. So he unlocks the red door and he unlocks the bar door. And at that point, like, I had all the ideas of how I was gonna fucking escape. I just didn't know, how am I gonna stab this cocksucker and get the fucking keys from him? Only way I'm gonna get these keys is to overpower him. There's no other way. I'm not gonna talk. He's a big guy. I'm a little kid. He's older, he's a CO. Long story short, we go up. I get into the AP room. I go into the bathroom, and I'm sitting there, and I'm scared. I remember sitting there looking at the toilet, and it wasn't like the one you got in your cell up there. It was the silver one, but just the toilet one, like they're all having the bullpens. And I'm looking. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I walked back from the bullpen into the AP room, and he was sitting at the desk, kind of like you are. And I walked up, and I said, Officer such and such, listen, man, I don't know what I've done to you. I'm sorry. They're torturing me. I broke down in tears in front of him. I said, I'm begging you, man, please. What do I got to do? I can't live like this no more. I'll do anything. Anything you want, please. He looks at me. He goes, they all break after a while. He goes, I want information. You give me information, I'll get you out of that cell. I said, oh. All right, so the kid that I was escaping with, I already knew what he had. So I said, such and such got a shank in his cell. And everybody's going to go, oh, my God, you snitch. Well, I told on the kid that was escaping with me. Fuck you, I'm getting out of prison. So this guy gets a hard on. Oh, really? I was like, yeah, you can get him. I'm going to lawyer to these motherfuckers. So he jumps up and shakes my hand. You need a cigarette? Gives me a cigarette, because now he thinks I'm going to be his fucking pet snitch. And to flip somebody that was as crazy as I would have been to them guys, always in seg, always fighting. I was the guy throwing shit and spitting, and I'm the reason. Like one of them guys that started the reason they had to have spit masks on. So he was all excited. So he gives me I go back into the block, because you got from the AP room, like this room, we'd walk into that door and then walk down a little hallway to walk into the max part. And it would open into the big square, and there's galleys, 2 of them. And my kid that I escaped is on this side. So I said to him, I said, hey, can I run down and get some stuff from such and such? And he was like, make it quick. So he didn't know what cell I was going. I ran down. I told my boy, I said, you give me some cigarettes. I said, 5 minutes, I'll be back. He goes, yeah, okay. He gives me a couple cigarettes. He goes, if you're not, you owe me for them cigarettes. Whatever. I run down the tier. Everybody in the jail knows I'm getting ready to escape. Everybody. Because, kid I was escaping with ran his mouth. And like back then, there was a lot of times in them little closed environments, we would run our mouths just to people. Like, hey, I'm getting ready to break out of the jail. Anybody interested? Everybody here's either in here for... And at that time, in that county jail was the kids that had... The brothers that had robbed the armored truck in Winston. It was a real famous case in Connecticut back, They were in there, and there was a couple different famous, real big cases at the time in Connecticut that were in that jail. And they had the offer to escape with me, and they were good. So whatever. So I still don't know what I'm going to do. The ice pick is down here. So I go down the stairs, and it's, a lot of it is hazy to me even to this day. Because my adrenaline was I'd never been... you can't breathe. You're like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I went to walk towards the cell, and I said, man, if I go in the cell, it's over with. So I said, can I get a cup of water? He goes, yeah, make it quick. So I bent down, I grabbed a little yellow cup, and I went into the little slop sink that was next to the cell, and I poured the water, and I was shaking. And I walked back into the cell, and, as I'm walking into the cell, facing it where he would shut it, just as he grabbed the door, he goes, all right. I grabbed the ice pick, and I turned around, and I hit him. Pow! And when I hit him the first time, he fell back. And then I just ran at him. He was like, what the fuck? And he came at me. And when he came at me, I reached and I started, I was just stabbing him anywhere. We fell to the ground. I'm punching him. I grabbed his walkie-talkie. I threw it across the floor. Man, I beat this man up as much as I could, stabbed him. I thought I killed him. I dragged him into the cell. I got his keys off of him. When I dragged him into the cell, he was out cold. He was done. I dragged him into the cell. I locked it. I got his keys because I knew the keys. I watched. And then he had a ring of keys on the bottom, had all the master lock keys that unlock all the cages upstairs. So when I got him secured in his cell, he's the only cop now in this whole because nobody's supposed to be out. Everything is deadlocked. My cell's the only cell that can come out because it's a dry cell and it's a seg cell, and they're supposed to call for backup, especially for me, but they all think they're so tough, and I'm just a little kid. I'm stupid. What am I going to do? So I dragged him into the cell and I smashed his fucking head in the bars. And I ran up the stairs. When I went up the stairs, I had the ice pick still in my hand. And, I may make this sound like it's romantic, but dude, I assure you, this was the most stumbling, bumbling event ever. I stabbed myself. I tripped several times. Blood everywhere. Crime scene, they didn't even have to worry about it. I left trails to everything I did. So I'm looking for the keys. I find the keys. There's tons of keys, and I got them old skeleton keys, the old brass ones. So I get the master lock. I unlock it, open it, pull the fucking latch, and all the cells open all the way down, and people's heads start sticking out. I'm standing at the end of the tier, holding an ice pick wrapped in a bloody sock with the keys in the other hand. I had crazy hair at that point. I had long hair, but it was long on the top. But I'd been in that cell for so long, I probably looked like doo-doo man. I didn't know. I hadn't had a shower in God knows how long. So I looked down, coming down the tier, and as he's coming down the tier, all these tough guy gangsters that were bullying poor little me are all shutting their fucking doors. Pow, 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 pow. Ain't none of them want to escape. We run into the AP room. And when I run into the AP room, I'm fumbling again, trying to find keys. Now, nervousness. Now, as we run into the AP room, there's a door, red door, and it's got a two-way key. They unlock it on one side, they unlock it on this side. You could see in. So I ran into the AP room, and I'm looking for the key. I'm looking to find the key to unlock the thing. So I got to get the bolt cutters because I got to cut them gates in order to get out that door. Once I get out that door, I'm good. So I hear all them bitch-ass dudes in them cells screaming, "Escape, inmate, escape, escape." All the guys that were in them cells. And I always wondered this, because there was guys on the bottom tier that got out that I didn't let out, that I got blamed for letting out, that saved the CO's life. So somehow or another, I left some of the keys there. They gave me 20 years for stealing the CO's keys. Robbery first. Anyways, so I hear him screaming, and I told him, I said, "Go back in there, see what the fuck is going on." So when he ran in there, I got the bolt cutters, and I unlocked the AP room, and he's not there. And I'm like, "Chris, come on, come on, come on, come on." I did it again. "Come on, come on, come on, come on." And I walk out into the hallway, and I see the captain or lieutenant in the window, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I don't think it registered at first, and then he went, and he ran upstairs, going to get the rest of the COs. They're coming. So I said, "Chris, we got to go now." And I ran into the AP room. We ran into the little bullpen area. I took the bolt cutters and I cut an X. Boom, 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 boom. We kicked it. We went through, smashed the camera, because they had them old cameras back then that would be in the corner. I smashed the camera. I cut the other fence, and there was a red door, just a regular door with a pane of window, all different. And I knew I could break it because I'd been in and out of that door so many times. And my father, I told you I welded, and I grew up doing all that stuff. So I looked at the welds and knew they were crappy welds. And I was like, I can break that window. And I had these big, huge, the old bolt cutters that they have for the prisons. And I smashed this window. There was a cop on the other side of the window that came running to stop me from coming through. I was scared to death, dude. I hit that window, and it broke on the third one, the whole window. I don't know how, but the whole window just flipped out, hit the ground. And it was probably the most athletic I ever was to that point in my life, but I jumped through the window, rolled, and came up And that cop hauled ass because I would have hit him so hard with them fucking bull cars. There was nobody that was stopping. I could hear the cop cars coming. Chris came through that window and we ran through the front of this jail, ran all the way. As we were running through the front of the jail, we saw all the COs like this in the window watching us. They didn't want to come down. They didn't want to come in. They didn't know if they had one dead in the basement. So we took off in the woods, freezing cold. And you can look it up. It was the coldest winter to that point in fucking Connecticut when we escaped, and we had all state clothes on. And I was talking to my sister, and I was like, I don't even know how I ended up in New York from this. Like, the direction that I took off in, I shouldn't have ended up where I did. We take off, and I can hear the cops. I can hear them. They're everywhere. And we're running, and my knowledge is just jumping in car hopping and jumping in cars and knowing how to grab fucking coats and jackets or whatever to survive. We got some stuff. We were running across one field, big, huge cornfield that had been chopped down. And again, it's March, so the moon is really bright and it's cold, so it's clear. And we're running across the field and the cop is coming. I can hear the 4-barrel kick in. I grabbed Chris and we dove, and that cop car came up in that field and scanned that light. We got lucky again. Again, we took off. I'm telling you, it was like everything I did couldn't go wrong with that, getting away from them cops. So we take off, and it was so fucking cold. I come up on these houses. Now, the kid that's with me, I look at it, and I haven't talked to him since 92, maybe 94. I might have seen him. Not because I don't like the kid, but we were never best friends, and, you move on in life. You know what I mean? Like, you evolve. Some people choose to do whatever you... So, and I never really liked him back then. Like, we and him had nothing in common. He called himself Devil Man, and he thought he was fucking whatever, and he was just as much of a pussy as I was. In fact, he didn't know what the fuck to do. Like, so... It's not like I knew. I had survived out on my own enough to know, well, we got to stay warm, so let's find a place to stay warm. And they were building this house. It had a furnace in the basement. It wasn't completely done, so there was nobody there, but it was still warm and everything, so we broke into it. And as I'm walking around, I happened to look up in the ceiling, and it had like a little square. It used to have the little crawl space attics, and I was like, we need to go up there, because if they come, they're going to find us here. And they got dogs. They got all that stuff. Like, that is a true thing. They do have, So I ended up jumping up. I'm tall. I jump up, push the little wood aside, crawl up in there, pull myself up. I reach down, and I pull Chris up. He pulls up, and not a big space. We crawl all the way to the corner, and it had the pink insulation. We get inside that pink insulation and fall asleep, and I went out cold. Again, I'll sleep anywhere. When I'm tired, I don't give a fuck. I'm going out. I'm snoring. Chris wakes me up. What? Shh, the cops are downstairs. Huh? The cops are downstairs. So I can hear the cop. He's in the room below us, and he's like, I don't know if he's talking to the owners, the contractor. It's the daytime, I guess. And he's going, yeah, I don't know where the hell they went. They were here. The dog smelled them or whatever. They were here, but they're not here anymore. We think they stole the car and took off. There was a stolen car in this area last night. We think they took off. We hear all this. We're in the fucking attic. So he leaves. We stayed there all night. Finally, we come down when it's nice and dark. And again, I don't know. Pink insulation is supposed to make you itch. We didn't have anything to wear. No snowsuits, nothing like that. It was so cold. So we grabbed all that pink insulation. There was tape in the basement, and I literally taped pink insulation all over my body to stay warm. And we were running, and it would get really hot. We'd start ripping it off because that stuff will start making you like overheat. But we never itched, and I couldn't understand if it was because it was so cold or our adrenaline, but we had it on for hours we were just running through the woods. Again, I didn't have anywhere to go. I wanted to go to New York City and hide in the subways. That was my idea. And he didn't want to do that because he didn't want to live in the subways. So I was like, well, fuck it. I got an aunt that lives up north, and we can get on the Indian reservation and get into Canada. Let's do that. All right. So we running through the woods. Then we get another getting tired. We come up on a campground, and they're like summer home type of deal. We break in, we stay there for the night. Wake up in the morning, and I'm looking around for, we need a vehicle. And I see one that's an old F-150 pickup truck. And another reason why I tell my wife I will never own a Ford F-150 pickup truck, because this is in this story, this is the second F-1 pickup truck that I get that has an issue, because the first one with the cops when I got into the chase was an F-150 pickup truck. So this one here, I see it. I can hear a chainsaw. It's in the back, all the way in the back, and chopping wood or whatever. I see smoke coming out of the house. So I'm like, oh, there's a for sale sign in the truck. I'm like, let's go see if they got the keys. So we go there. There's nobody there. We're knocking. Didn't have a plan. Didn't even know. Like, what am I going to do? I got no money. You can't buy the truck. No gun. I had the bolt cutters still, though. And the bolt cutters underneath your jacket or underneath a gray sweatshirt will look like a gun in the right situation if you need to. So nobody answers the door. I take a screwdriver. I jimmy the door, break into the house. We go in, ransack the place. I know somebody's there in the backyard because there's food on the stove. So I'm telling Chris, come on, find the truck keys, find the truck keys, find the truck keys. So, can't find the truck keys anywhere. He comes out with a shotgun. I'm like, oh, got that. Let's take that. Now we got a gun. We're good. Go outside. Again, I know cars because of my father. F-150 pickup trucks were easy to steal. You take a screwdriver, pop off the ignition, jam it in there, and you could just, stick it right in there, turn the car, break the once you get the steering lock done, you're good. And it's a standard. He don't know how to drive a standard. I do. Get in the truck, then he finds the truck keys after I broke the truck lock. So again, we take off, and I just took off, dude, as fast as I could. I remember going down streets. If you asked me now which route I took, I have no fucking idea, dude. I just drove and made sure I didn't. If I saw a cop, we were going to go, because that truck was definitely going to be wanted. And I was looking for another vehicle. And we kept driving and driving. And then it ran out of gas. We put gas in it. And then, like, a couple miles up the road after we put gas in it, it just died. Ooh. To this day, I don't know what happened. I pulled over into the side of the road, and we're scared. The cops are everywhere looking for us. There's a manhunt for us. He's a murderer. So the murderer is what made the thing, like, even bigger. There's a manhunt for a murderer, and I'm just the guy that, happens to be there because, it was always about him. That's why they were so I don't know if they would have chased me as hard as they chased me with him. They might have, because they charged me with attempt capital felony murder just for the CO in Connecticut. I never did a day of time for that, though. I ended up getting down the road when I plea bargained. My lawyer got that thrown out, because if I'd have went to trial with that, I found out I would have probably beat my whole case. Kid, they shut the jail down because of human rights violations. I had a judge that was going to let me out before I escaped, but because I went in and all the COs did, this part I left out, because I went into the prison, because I went to court, it was exposed about my child molestation and all that, and all them COs went back and just spread it throughout the prison. So now I got all these inmates coming to me talking about, you got fucked by your cousin when you were a kid. That's kind of rough for a dude who's, you know what I mean? That really, like, if all that would have come out, like the truth of what was going on with me in that prison at that time, there's no question I would have walked, or because a judge wasn't going to put me in prison, because I wasn't in prison for the kidnapping was horrible, but I wasn't in prison for anything. Like, I wasn't a terrorist, and I was a fucked up kid that did dumb shit, and she was going to let me go. But because that happened, that was what tipped me over the edge, because it was so sensitive, and I got every guy in prison that I'm with knowing that I was molested as a kid, talking about it. I got guards coming to my cell talking to me about something they're not even supposed to fucking have that information. Like, what are you doing? Anyway, so
you didn't even know that you were about to get released then before you escaped?
Well, I would have only done 3 years.
Wow.
And I would have probably done it in like the judge wanted to give me help. My case was so, like, my childhood upbringing, what the school system did to me, what happened with the, with that stuff, the fact that they didn't know what to do about any of it. Like the school district fucked me right over. You know what I mean? Like who gets rid of a kid at 7th grade and never wonders, well, where did this kid go? No CPS or nothing back then to check. Like the school district just decided never to have me come back. They didn't know how to teach me. They didn't want to learn. They didn't give a fuck. Years later, they come to my mother and apologize. We're sorry we did that to your son. Well, that's great, but you didn't do nothing for me. I got nothing but life. So yeah, I would have gotten released. So I turned a 3-year bid into a 50-year bid like that. That escape turned my bid into a 50-year bid. Now I'm a lifer. So I'm on the run. I get into New York. Now, if I wouldn't have committed no crimes in New York, I wouldn't have did no time in New York. But I'm not thinking, dude. I don't even know where the fuck I'm at that point. I just escaped from prison. I'd only been out 2 days. I'm 18. I've been locked up since I was 16. My brain span is probably as wide as, you know what I mean? So truck breaks down. I see a house across the street. I go, well, there's a red Fiero and a blue F-150. Old, like a fucking 60 or a 70, 78, 70, I don't know. It was old. Piece of shit. It had snow in front of it. And I told him, I said, dude, when the plan was, he was going to go to the door. I had the shotgun now. He was going to go to the door. And he was going to knock. And then I was going to come up behind him with the shotgun. And we were going to get the keys to the red Fiero. Red Fiero was a fast little car. And it wasn't a truck that had snow in front of it. That didn't look like it had gotten driven in a long time. So, long story short, he goes in the house. Guy snatches him up. He can't fight. He's beating this guy up, my partner. I got the gun stuck in the door because the guy slams the door on the gun on me. I got no firing pin in the gun. So, what damage am I going to do? So, Chris is screaming, hey, pull the gun out. And he'll give me the keys. So, all right. So, I pull the gun out. Now we got another kidnapping charge and home invasion and all kinds of crazy shit. And he comes out the fucking door on the other side, and he's got the keys to the fucking F-150 pickup truck. And I swear to God, I jumped in his fucking truck. I started it up. It started on the first try. Brum, motherfucker. We pulled out of the driveway, and I must have drove about a half a mile up the road, and this fucking thing ran out of gas. And I looked at him and said, you are a fucking retard, dude. And we had to jump out of that truck and run. We ran through the woods. And I said, this time I'm going in the house. And he had a Mustang in his driveway. That's what I wanted. I think it was a Mustang. I went in, and this is one of them situations where I did it. I feel bad about the poor guy. He was a good guy. I don't like to bother anybody. I never wanted to bother innocent people. Unfortunately, when you're in that mindset of insanity, it doesn't make a fucking difference, dude. When people have fucked with you and you've already got issues and you've just been fucked with every single day since the day you were born, I swear to God, I was fucked with every day somehow or another. You just are tired and don't care no more. When I went in that house, I knocked on the door, the guy let me in, and I really went in because I wanted to make sure there was no women and kids in there. I never wanted to have anything to do with that. Because I always knew that was I had no beef with people like that. You know what I mean? So I went in and it was the guy who seemed to be all right. And I asked to use the phone. And he gave me the phone and I fake called somebody about needing a ride or whatever the fuck it was. And then when I went to walk out the glass door, I opened it up and he came in with the shotgun and the dude flipped out, jumped back. Oh my God. And I was like, we're not going to hurt you. Relax. We're not going to hurt you. Just relax. So we bring him into the living room and we start talking to him. And, I like to talk even back then. So I ran down the entire history of every fucking thing I did. And he just sat there and listened to me. And at some point, we ended up shutting off all the lights and going up into the bedroom. And we were watching the original Twilight Zone movie with Dan Aykroyd. And we got the first phone call. And it was his supposed called girlfriend. And No, I can't come down there, so on and so forth. Then somebody came to the door, and I didn't know that the guy was like connected to like the sheriff's office, or he was a sheriff, or he was something to do with that. So when the cop came to the door, I went down with him, and I had the shotgun there, and I wasn't facing him, so I didn't know what his faces were. So I guess when the cop came to the door, he was like doing this with his eyes that we were upstairs. So, he pulled back, and then the first call came in, and Chris was talking to him, and I didn't like what Chris was saying. Chris was pussyfooting. Oh, yeah, okay, well, I want $1 million in a jet. And again, I always tell people that the funny thing about in my brain, how people's brains work, I realized years later, is there was a movie that was out that the reason why I thought about kidnapping or taking a house hostage was there was a movie with guy from 9.5 Weeks there.
Was it the Bruce Willis movie with hostage?
No. With the guy from 9.5 Weeks. What the hell is his name, dude? He used to be a pretty boy. Now he looks crazy. He was in the Expendable movies with Sylvester Stallone. It doesn't matter. I hate when I can't think. He had a movie where he took a hostage, and I just remember that he asked for stuff. And in the movie, I remember, and I didn't watch it. I remember listening to it above it because my cell, before I went to that seg cell, was above like where they had the TV. And I remember him asking for stuff, and I remember that he didn't get it. And I know that when you have a hostage, you never get anything. You're not going to get nothing. You can be lucky if you're not killed. Really, that's got to be the only thing you can think about. And even as back then, I knew that. I don't know how I knew it, but I knew that. So I snatched the phone from Chris, and I was like, what the fuck do you want? I just started blacking out on these dudes on the other end. And they were like, well, calm down, Mr. Moore. What kind of guns? What do you got? And I was like, I got mad guns in here. Lots of guns. And they were like, well, what kind of guns? I was like, I got long guns. Because at that point, I had the shotgun that we came in with, and then I had the guy's guns. He had hunting rifles. But I'm sure he had a lot more guns and just didn't want to tell me. And he probably could have killed us, and he didn't, now that I think about it, because, we're kids. What the fuck did we know? So they're like, oh, and I said, I used to work for a dynamite blaster. So I had a dynamite. I got lots of dynamite, and I actually did. I gave him the name of the guy that I worked for. I worked for a dynamite blaster when I was like 14 years old. My father got me a job with him. Real rough guy. He used to show up in the morning drunk. He'd be like, hey, listen, if the cops ever pull us over, I keep the blasting caps under the front seat, so you're going to have to grab them and run. I hope you don't mind. Because you're supposed to keep them this guy was a nightmare. So I worked for him for a whole summer, so I knew everything about dynamite. So I told them that, and they got real nervous. And I was like, if I see any cops in here, anybody comes in this fucking house, I'm blowing us all out. I'm killing us. Hung up the phone. They call back. Hung up the phone. They call back. This is all night long, from like 8 o'clock at night till like the next morning. I have this guy hostage in his house with me and him. And they called my mother and everybody up. They're in the hostage van listening to me black out about crazy shit. I never knew they were there. I'm just going crazy in this house and these cops. Every time they come, I don't want to hear it. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like this whole event, even now as I describe it, I remember being in the bedroom. I remember every part that I talk about, I remember, but I know that there's other things that went on that I just can't for the fucking life of me remember. I'd love to know what my partner's memory of this event is too. So long story short, we go through the night and they're getting more aggressive. One point I went downstairs and I heard them. They were in the basement. And I fucking picked up the phone. I was like, I'm blowing this fucking place up. I hear cops in the basement. I'm blowing it up. They got nervous. I heard them run out. So I went into the kitchen. We were hungry. I went into the kitchen. They talk about this in the article, one of them. I go into the kitchen. I wanted something to eat, and he had steaks in there. I think they were like venison steaks or something. So I go into the kitchen, and this is when they first started with like them red sensors on the guns. Like when you
the lasers. Yeah.
Right. I fucking went into the kitchen. I swear to God, dude, there was 1,000 of them in there. I went, oh, got out of there. So all night they call. Finally, they call up and they're like, well, what do you want? What do you want? I was like, well, I'm out of cigarettes. I ain't got no cigarettes. And back then, I wasn't going to go without cigarettes. So I was like, I need cigarettes and something to eat because I can't cook a steak because there's fucking red beans everywhere. So they go, well, what kind of cigarettes do you want? I go, I don't know. I want a carton of Winston's or Marlboros. Well, we ain't got that. We can put a carton together of various cigarettes if you want. All right, fine. Me and Chris agreed, and pizza. And we would give the hostage up. But the deal was I'd give up the hostage unharmed, and then they'd give us like an hour or so to smoke and eat our cigarettes, and then we'd come out peacefully. So I remember telling the dude, like, yo, I told you my story. This is what it is. I'm sorry it happened like this. We're going to let you go, whatever. He was like, no, man, it was cool. He was always really cool, even when we went to court. He came to court. He didn't have to, but he came to court and he was like, nah, man, them guys never bothered me. They never harmed me. They had me whatever, but he was cool about it. He wasn't a dick. He could have been. The first guy was a dick with the F-150. He was an asshole, but he came into court cursing me out and everything. But the guy that we actually took hostage, he was a decent human being. I'm sure I caused him trauma. Sorry. Anyway, so we let him go, and it's just me and Chris in there. And I go up into the bedroom, and it's dark. I remember sitting down and we're smoking. And I remember asking him, like, what are we going to do? I wanted to go out. If he'd have said right then and there, let's just run out of there with the guns and act like we got something, I would have did it. I would have did it at that moment. I know what that feeling is like when you're in that room and it's quiet. It was just me and him. And I asked him, what are we going to do? What do you want to do, bro? You want to go out? We always talked about going out in a blaze of glory. He looked at me and he goes, no. He said, I'd rather go in and try it again. At least if we're alive, we can try to escape again. Makes sense to me, right? So I said, all right, if that's what you want to do. It wasn't hard to convince me either way. I was pretty numb. I was scared at that point. I was too crazy to really know how much danger I was in until I actually had to come out of that fucking house. And so long story short, we go downstairs. He had this stereo system back then. It was like one of the new ones. It just come out with CDs, and George Thorogood's Bad to the Bone was one of the CDs he had. And I told Chris, I said, we're going to put this in and blast it. And I put the Bad to the Bone song in, swear to God. And I blasted that fucking stereo system. He had speakers. You could hear it all outside. They were playing Bad to the Bone when we came through the fucking window. And as I'm walking out, I got these cops coming towards me. Dude, they had guns. These things were fucking long. This is in the 90s. But it just looked like some G.I. Joe shit. I did not know that there were that many people surrounding that house. Like, that was a huge, they had major crime squads. So as we're walking out, the radio's blasting Bad to the Bone. My heart's, and the cops going, put your hands out like you're flying. So I put my hands out this way, and he's like, no, like Superman. Then we get down on the ground, and it was, if we would have made any move, we'd have been dead. No question about it. Because they'd been out there all night. It was cold. They were mad. We were two kids. The deal that I had made the cops, though, was I said, these are the following marks and bruises that we have on our bodies. I didn't want to get beat up anymore. I said, if I'm beat up, then that means that you guys did this to us. So they promised they wouldn't touch us. So the cops get us handcuffs, and it's like about a mile and a half long driveway as we're going down. Bro, there's cops everywhere. They're coming out of the woods. They're coming out to curse at us. Piece of shit, we got you now. You're lucky we didn't kill you. We watched you all night long. We seen you do this. And I looked at the one guy's gun, and I'm like, damn, that's a good gun. What kind of gun is it? And years later, I realized why he said it to me. Because I said it first. Because I go, what kind of gun is that? He goes, it's a long gun. Because when they called me and asked me what kind of guns I had, I said they were long guns. So he said, it's a long gun. Mind your business. I was like, all right, no problems. They bring us in. There's cameras everywhere. They bring us to the county jail. The police station. I'm in the police station fucking all day long. I'm handcuffed to the bench. And I think this is why I don't like my escape partner anymore. So when I'm in the back room, now mind you, I could have went home. For real. I didn't have to escape from prison. I liked Chris. He was a buddy of mine, even though he was a piece of shit to me. I didn't have anything else. I escaped to get him out because he did what he did, and we're in a police station after all this. I saved his life. I mean, he did things for me too. I'm not making it seem like he was very valuable in it. But he's out in a police station. I can hear him eating, drinking, talking shit all fucking day long. I'm handcuffed and shackled to a bench in the back. What are you fucking kidding me? So when they finally bring me out to talk to the state, New York cops never wanted to talk to me. Not then. They waited for the Connecticut cops to come. And when the Connecticut cops came, they knew me. They talked to me right away. And, I never hid the story. I told them what happened. I didn't. I guess I never thought that I had to hide it. Like I did it. I escaped. It wasn't like I was going to be able to say I didn't do it. We're here in New York. And he told me right then and there, he said, damn, he said, John, he said, I've known you since you were a kid. He said, you were going to go home. He said, you're never going to come out again. I'll never see you free again. Ever. Whatever. Fuck off. Fuck your mother. Eat a dick. So I didn't get along with any of the cops right away in New York. They bring us to the county jail, Columbia County Jail. And that was a nightmare. The day we get pulled in, when we get arrested, I get in and they bring me into the county jail. They bring us into this big holding cell. And it's got a two-way mirror. It's where they would bring like the drunk take type of people. And they got a few cells. And they take all of our clothes off, put us in the cell. And we're butt naked in front of this two-way mirror with everybody coming in the showers or whatever. So they come in and they tell us that, I want a cigarette right away. I'm like, I want a cigarette. Fuck, man, I smoke. I want a cigarette. And they're like, no, you can't have a cigarette. We're taking everything. You're going to be naked in here because you might be suicidal. And I fucking said, suicidal? What are you fucking stupid? We could have just had ourselves killed in the house. Like, why would I come to jail and kill myself? Like, I want a fucking cigarette. I want to smoke. And they said no. So I think I spit on them. And they came in right away. And we fought. Now, again, I always fought. It didn't matter what happened, jumped or not, I fought. And they don't like that. And I was strong as an ox. So it would take 8, 9, 10 of them to restrain me, and they restrained me, and they're like, what the fuck? So they send the captain in. His name was Charlie Brown. You might have to get rid of that. I don't know. He's a real person. And he came in, and he goes, I've had some of the toughest criminals I've ever met in here. He said, you're nothing. He had some big guy, whatever. He goes, we'll crush you. I was like, I just want my cigarettes. Long story short, it's a constant battle. Every day we're fighting. I get cigarettes, but they're kept outside. I'm naked the whole time. They would take us out of the cells, handcuffed and shackled, and walk us through the entire jail, butt naked, past everybody. Didn't matter who was there, day or night. We never had a stitch of clothes on. And they would walk us all through, handcuffed and shackled, lawyers, whatever. We could never have clothes on the entire time we were there. At the end of it was bad. Beatings beyond beatings, partly because of, my bullshit, partly because they were pissed off and we were on the news every day. And long story short, when it kind of came to an end in that area and I start getting towards my sentencing, they brought us into a tier and the inmates on the other, because you'd walk by blocks, you have the little windows they could see, and they were beating on the wall, screaming. We could hear them, me and Chris, when we went in, and there must have been like 50, 60 COs in there. It was a shift change. And they just beat us. So bad that the sheriffs had to come from the jail that was connected to the county jail to break it up. And that's when I ended up getting transferred to Marcy for the criminally insane in New York, and he went to Hudson. And I ended up getting, for all of that, stuff to 12.5 to 25 in New York. And I ended up, years later, getting 25 in Connecticut. Consecutive.
So you would have to go back to Connecticut to serve time?
I'd have to go back to Connecticut, and Connecticut fucked me over now because I was supposed to be sentenced in Connecticut first, which would have ran my time concurrent with New York. I would have been able to get it done. But they didn't. And so I had an effective sentence of 50 years. And off of the New York time, the 25, I wasn't going to get out of 12 and a half years. I was going to do, and I did 17.8 on the New York one. So I got sentenced to 12 and a half to 25 in New York. I copped out to it. And I went crazy in the courtroom, spit on the judge, all kinds of stupid. Yeah, suck my dick. Fuck you. I got my chance to talk. Went crazy.
Now, where are your parents? Where's your mom, your family? What happened?
Living their life and trying to raise my sister, who was 6 when I went to jail. I love my sister. I was 9 when my sister was born, and she was just like, I love my sister. So she was a baby when I went to prison, and they were trying to raise her. And, they got this kid who just went crazy one day, and he's on the news every day and got cops kicking in their door in the middle of the night because he's escaping from prison. Where they were at the time, I thought they had abandoned me. Now that I'm older and I realize that they were just trying to cope. And a lot of times they wouldn't let them get in touch with me. They'd keep my family from contacting me. I was high of the highest securities in these prisons back then that didn't have that type of. There were wild guys, but guys that just keep wanting to escape and just attack COs for no reason and other inmates. It didn't matter, dude. We were in them cells so long, lights on. Guys would come in from the street. They'd have packages or whatever on them. Be like, hey, give them to us. We'll hold them. Give them back to you. And then they'd be like, hey, can we get it back? We'd be like, well, you got to give us half weed or whatever, But we were constantly monitored, two-way mirror. We fought every day in there. It was a nightmare. So then I go and I get sentenced in New York, 12 and a half to 25. Never been to a real prison before, ever. All my drama was in county jails and city jails, and never had been to a state facility. And the very first prison that I go to outside of downstate, because when I got sentenced, they immediately transferred me to downstate in New York. That's where you're processed. When you go there, they shave your head, shave all the hair on your body. They got these old showers that are freezing cold you've been through the whole delousing, and I don't know if they still do it because I ain't gone through that in a long time, but they used to delouse us and everything when we went in there. And it's the big, huge hub. It's the reception center for New York prison system. And I ended up stabbing a guy when I was there. That's how I started my New York bid over cigarettes. We'd be in these little tanks, and they'd have like maybe 7 cells or whatever, 8 cells. And they'd be on top of each other. I don't know what kind of buildings you'd call them. They're weird prison cells, not like the ones I'm used to with bars. You'd walk in, there'd be a day room, and then the cells would be off to the side, like little egg crates, I guess they look like. And we used to all share cigarettes or whatever. You could get packages in New York prison system from the street. You get 35 pounds of food and 5 cartons of cigarettes back then, every month from the street. So we'd be waiting for people that were in there. We'd all get cigarettes, a half a cigarette. I'd take a couple puffs. He'd take a couple puffs. We'd pass it. So this Muslim kid ended up getting cigarettes. And there was another Muslim kid over there with him. Big, tall, country, white Muslim kid. Tall, big. Bigger than me. Big, huge back then. And he was a sex offender, I think. He was a white Muslim kid. And usually back then that was a big... And this Muslim kid ended up getting his package. And he smoked with us every day. And he got his package, and he didn't want to give us any of his cigarettes. Fuck us. Fuck everybody that wasn't him and his Muslim brother. So I waited. I waited till the doors, you could hear him click, 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 click. So everybody went up the rec, and I went into his cell and took all of his cigarettes. Gave them to everybody. He came back and found out. And the big white kid was like, he couldn't talk, so he was deaf. And the way he yelled at me, I'm gonna fuck you up. I couldn't beat him, so I made a shank. Again, I'm 165 pounds, maybe 185. Doors click, I come out, jump on him, and when he hit me with the first 3 shots. I heard stars. I heard the me. The second time I said, shit, I'm going out. So I grabbed him and pushed him into they got like a shower thing, and I kept stabbing him. They come break it up, bring me to Seg. I'm all beat up. He's bloody. I play crazy. That's what gets me to go back to Marcy, so I don't have to stay in Seg. You could play crazy and go right to Marcy. At that point, I knew the game. So I'm doing that. He presses charges against me. And tough guy that he was. He presses charges against me. So I got an outside case now. So now I'm in New York. First fucking 6 months, got an outside case. I'm in Seg, going back and forth to the mental hospital. I go to Auburn as the very first prison that I go to. Super, like Max, big, oldest prison in the country, Max, running, I think at that time, and still. They look like castles. Have you ever seen the New York prisons?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look inside. They look just like they look outside, big castles. And I was so scared, bro. Again, Connecticut was a mental fuck. This was, you looked out to the yard. There was 1,500 people walking around what looked like a Kmart parking lot or a Target parking lot with walls. Just walking around late at night. Big floodlights are in the yard. You got little courts where people hang out, little picnic tables. Everybody's got an area. You got the handball. And I'm looking through a mental health, old-fashioned bars in front of me looking, and I'm going, oh, my fucking God, dude, I'm going to die. I can't do this. There's no way. I'm by myself. I have no family there. I have no friends there. I've never been to New York if I wasn't in a car going to see some relatives. Never been to anything in New York. This is new. So when I'm in Auburn, the guy that helps me in the prison system a lot, I end up watching beat up a couple guys. He was a tough guy, big, tough white dude. He was really like my father. Because I spent more time with him. He took me under his wing. No weird shit or nothing like that. Righteous dude took me under his wing and really, he wouldn't let me hang out if I couldn't read or write. He used to make me read or write. He helped me a lot. So he was this guy, and he was the toughest white dude in the state at the time. And I wanted to be him so bad. Wanted to be him. So everything I did, I used to emulate him. He fought, I'd fight. He did this, I did that. Just because I wanted his praise and I wanted that. And I started elevating myself. Scared at the same time, but what I was doing out of just, I'm here. I got 12 and a half to 25, and I know I got to go back to court. I haven't gotten sentenced in Connecticut yet. But at the time, I have the attempt capital felony murder. I have first degree escape. I have robbery first. I have burglary, whatever. I have like enough charges that'll give me 350 years. Like when you look at my charges, what they charged me with, it was ridiculous. So I know I got this hanging over my head. I'm like, I'm never going home. This is my life. I'm going to be a jailhouse gangster now. Like nobody knows me in New York. I've been in jail long enough. I've escaped. I've stabbed people. I've caused statewide chaos. I'm starting to become a badass. I'm starting to believe that, like, I fight cops. I fuck you, suck my dick. It didn't matter who you were. So I had that attitude. And then finally 94, 95 comes, 96. My grandmother passed away. I have a quick, interesting story. Good, I know. I'm in Attica. And I had the kid that I stabbed in downstate, I see in Attica. And we're in the yard. And I go, now, I had been in Seg. I got out to this prison. He's there with me. I'm in D block. So I went up to them white guys. Didn't know anybody. The white dude had like a tattoo of a cut right here. He thought he was a tough guy because he had bit his pinky off and sent it to his girlfriend, he said, when he was, that's why he was missing his finger. So everybody thought he was a badass. So he's a white dude, and you're taught when you go to prison, you go to what looks like you, right? That's what you do. So I went up to them. I was like, you don't know me. I got this kid over here. He pressed charges on me. I stabbed him. He's a Muslim. They're going to come get me. Can I get a knife? Something. Fuck you. We don't know who you are. You could be a fucking rat. Like, I was new to the system. I knew a couple 5%er kids that I was in Seg with. Hey, Jay, what's up? Hey, man, I explained the situation. They were like, yeah, go get that bitch-ass motherfucker. Gave me a knife, and I went and stabbed the kid. As I was stabbing him, the sergeant jumped on me, and I hit him in the face with my elbow, and he out, and then they transformed on me, and they whooped my ass. I had not had an ass whooping from the DOC upstate yet. That was my first real official upstate ass whooping in Attica. And that's when they had the black glove crew. They used to wear gloves that just the finger, black workout gloves. And you got to go down this long hallway that goes into Times Square. And they were beating me. And then you got to go into an elevator and you go upstairs. And long story short, they put me in these strip cells. Now, the strip cells, because I always ended up going to MHU because that was in my record. So these strip cells are, I don't know, there's about 15 cells in there. And they're not a wide tier. Maybe they're about as long as this rug this way. And there's windows here that you can open, old-fashioned prison windows. Then you got the bars here. Now, in Seg and Attica back then, they used to use PC to do the tierman work or the porter work. They would feed you. They would give you your mail. It would be inmates that they couldn't put, they would be high-profile cases. And in Attica, it was Mark Chapman, who killed John Lennon, and it was the Bensonhurst brothers, who had that famous case Al Sharpton was involved with. I think it was like a rape case, or they beat a black, or something happened, and they were involved in it. So the Bensonhurst brothers were pretty cool. 2 Italian kids. They'd come down every once in a while. I'd been in the cell for a while. I was in this strip cell for a year altogether. And when I mean strip cell, I mean they didn't have Fergusons. They didn't have mats. You were in a bare, regular prison cell. You've been in the ones with the bars?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you got your bunk, you got your little wall, and then you got your porcelain toilet and your porcelain sink. Open bars, butt naked, nothing else. These are old prisons. They're not warm either. The only spots that are warm are on the floor against the back wall, because the old heating pipes have that hot water that comes through so you could stay warm. So at night you'd curl up and you'd lay on the floor. And I was in this cell for so long was because every time before the doctor would come down, the cops would come down and piss me off, and I'd get wild. So they wouldn't release me if I was all amped up. And because I had so much beef with the cops, I was always fighting with them. They were always fucking with me. And like one in particular time, I'll give you one. My son loves this one. He thinks this is the greatest one ever. So they come down. I'm butt naked. I must have been in this cell this is towards the end. And this is a cop that would come down. You ask for toilet paper, and he'd come down with a little square. He'd stick his finger in it and go, well, you stick this and you wipe it like that. I wipe my nose if it gets wet. Anyways, so he comes down with the doctor. The doctor's here. And you know how like the door is here, and then you'll have like the metal bars. It'll be like a little, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. Like you could stand here and still see the CO here. So the doctor's here, and I'm talking to him. And the cop is here. And I put my dick on the bars and started peeing on the cop as I'm talking to the doctor. And he's like, yeah, I heard you were doing good for the last couple of days. He goes, I'm thinking about it. And the cop goes, what the fuck are you doing? You fucking animal. Man, they whooped my ass for that, but it was so worth it. It was like one of my favorite experiences. They were so mad, but then it just kept me in there longer. So this kept going on and on. Now, Mark Chapman was a fucking scumbag the entire time I was there. He was an ass-kissing piece of shit. I never liked him. Nobody there liked him. Did whatever the COs wanted. And back then in New York prison, even if you were a fucking PC rat, you still didn't do shit for fucking cops like that. So now, I bring up the fact that I was naked and I was in this cell because health-wise, how healthy could I have been? Not seeing doctors, barely eating. Cops would come by, spit in my food. You know how many times I've eaten food where a cop has spit in his disgusting, nasty, chewed up tobacco in my food? And I've had to look at him and go, oh, this is fucking delicious. I kid you not, dude. I've done that time and time again because I would never let them cocksuckers see me fucking cry or say no. That's all I had. They could beat me up. They could tie me up, but they couldn't shut my fucking mouth. And they couldn't break, you know what I mean? They couldn't break me. And I didn't know why I didn't want to be broke, but I didn't want to be broke. So anyways, Mark Chapman one time comes down, middle of winter. Real nice. I'm the only one on the tier. Comes by my cell. He's like, hey, Jay, how you doing today? You've been kind of quiet. I didn't say nothing. He goes, yeah, I know you don't like me. He gave me an extra tray. So, you give a guy an extra tray of food when he's starving. He's going to be your best fucking friend. I started talking to him a little bit. And it was like throughout the day he was coming down, being real nice to me. And, I should have known. Anyway, so he came down and he offered me a cigarette at the night. He was like, I'm going to give you a cigarette before I go. Don't say nothing. I'll get in trouble. Yeah, all right, whatever. It's just a rollie, dude. You roll your own cigarettes. Well, cocksucker puts a cigarette, lights it for me. And I swear, dude, as soon as he lights the cigarette, I take the first puff, and it was like the first cigarette I had in days. And I see from the corner of my eye a big 5-gallon bucket. The big 5-gallon buckets they have in there. And the first bucket hits me. It's ice cold water, dude. Freezing fucking cold, bro. And it shocked me. It threw me back. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then he hit me with another one. Then he turns around and opens up all the windows on the tier. Now you got to realize there's already no heat here. Them windows, it's Attica. You've been up.
It's up north, yeah.
In the middle of winter, like February, like right around now. He
Yeah,
opens
it's
up the
cold.
windows. They lock the end of the tier and shut the doors and lights off and leave me in there all night long. The wind's blowing in, the snow's blowing in. The floor was so cold that it was slushy. I couldn't lay down anywhere in the cell. I tell the story all the time. I couldn't lay anywhere. I had to lay just, the heating pipe in the back of the cell is what dries up the and that's where I laid. I finally got a couple hours of sleep. I was so cold. I thought I was gonna die, dude. I did. I'd never been that cold in my life. It was just freezing cold pouring through the windows. Snow. It was ridiculous what this cocksucker did. And not one cop came down and did a tour all night long. No counts, no nothing. I laid down on the floor. Must have been 3, 4 in the morning. Because this was like 7, 6 at night when he did it. This wasn't late. They locked them places down early. So I laid down and I fell asleep. And I had a dream. And the dream that I had was my grandmother. And my grandmother had come to me. And I remember I had seen my yard where I grew up. And I remember my grandmother telling me, if you hold on, things will work out. And I seen a lady, and then people think I'm full of shit or whatever, but I seen kids, and I couldn't see their face. I didn't know who they were. And I woke up. When I woke up, I heard the cop at the end. What the fuck is going on down here more? What are you, fucking crazy? What did you do? So he comes down the fucking tier. And I as soon as he came in front of my cell, I just bust out in hysterical crying, snot coming out of my fucking nose, begging, please, I've had enough. And they called in everybody. Nobody got in trouble for it, but he tried to kill me for the COs, Mark Chapman. That's a God's honest. Everybody I tell, I'm like, yeah, that cocksucker tried to kill me in Attica. For the cops. They transferred me right out of there, put me in Comstock. I was in Comstock for a few years, and I went back to Connecticut. I ended up getting 25 years. They ended up throwing out the cop thing because, when you make a plea bargain, I could have gotten 300 and something years. So my lawyer got it down to, I ended up getting like 100 and something, all running concurrent. 25, 25, 20, get 20 for stealing the CO's keys robbery first. I got 5 years for stealing a sandwich. I got another 20 years for stupid. It was all stupid, but it was all robberies. Like I stole the keys. That's a forced armed robbery right there. The attempt capital felony murder. All right, so he retired, full pension. He wasn't that hurt. I didn't hurt him that bad. I scared him more than anything. I mean, I'd like to claim that I bloodied this dude to death, but if I would have never gotten out of prison. I fucked him up. And he probably suffers now with PTSD, but I never did a day of time for him because I plea bargained out of it. My lawyer was smart enough to get rid of that. And that helped me years later when it came to parole. That was the one thing my lawyer did for me. She didn't do anything else but get me time, but she got that fucking attempted capital felony murder on that fucking, because years later they told me if you would have went to trial, you'd have walked. I had them. They were abusing me. They closed the jail down after I escaped. So I took a 25-year running consecutive to New York, which gave me a total effective of like 50 years. And so midway through me going through New York, learning it, I was in and out of seg, constantly fighting. I got a big scar on my face. I got several stab wounds. I had over 150 fist fights, tickets. I had 7 assaults on staff in New York, and I had 3 riots. And then I had, numerous, that's not counting my Connecticut. But that's what I had before I met my wife. I get to Auburn. They got all these programs. I started calming down the more I got in. Now, I'm in now probably about 10, 11 years. When I met my wife, I was in 12 years. And I have some Native American in me. I'm not over the top here, but I had enough to be recognized at that point to get into the Native American ceremonies in prison. And my wife was an outside guest. She was a young lady. She was in college. And I would go to the ceremonies and, I liked her. We talked. We started writing. One thing led to another. She tried to play games a couple times. Like she didn't want to come see me or write to me. Like I wrote to her like almost every day for a year. And then I'd see her every couple months at these Indian ceremonies. And it would be like 100 outside guests from the street that would come into the maximum security prisons. And we would have these day events. They'd dance with us and sing. And I would only see her there. And she'd be like, yeah, write to me. And then she'd never write back to me. I got tired of it. So, and I had a lot of other girls that I was writing to in the prison system back then. I learned from all the pimps and everything in there. I used to be in seg so much, so I would talk to the old black dudes. Them are the dudes that I learned from. Them are all the books that I learned in the beginning. I read all the Message to the Black Man and all the Malcolm X. He was my hero for years. You know what I mean? Like I learned from pimps and players how to talk to women and write to women. So I didn't have any women before I went to prison, kid. I was a virgin until I met my wife. That's a fact. Like I used to lie about it before, right? But then when I got my first trailer visit with my wife and I came out, I told everybody, I was like, yeah, I finally broke my virginity. And they were like, what?
So you lost your virginity in prison?
I lost my virginity to my wife in prison, yeah. She don't believe me because I was molested as a kid. That makes you hypersexual. So pornography was a big part of my life. So I watched a lot of porn, so I knew what to do. And I could act my way out of anything. That's what I've been doing my whole fucking life. So when I met her, I knew how to act like I knew what I was doing. I didn't. And she used to, like to play games. So it was the last ceremony of the year. I wouldn't see her for like 4 months, and I couldn't get her to write to me. So I went to the ceremony. It was her birthday, and I can paint and draw and all that. So I used to make her all kinds of artwork. I'd have to show you. I do tons of stuff, and I drew her these little 2 Indians in a boat, and they were rowing away for her birthday. And she came in, and I was like, "Here, I gave you a birthday gift," and I was like real rude to her, and I sat across the room, and I was like, look, if you don't write to me, and I don't see you after this, I'm not going to see you no more. I'm quitting the group. You'll never see me again. We're done. So if you don't, we're done. I'm tired of playing. I'm tired of writing and trying to chase after you when, you're ignoring me, and I get to see you every once in a while. I just didn't want it. And I guess it was the ladies that were with her, or I made her jealous or whatever. But when she left that ceremony, 3 days later, I had a letter in the mail. And then ever since then, it's just, we wrote for years, dude. We talked to each other in the visiting room. In New York, you get 6.5 hour full contact visits in a maximum security prison 7 days a week. So she would come up. She was in college to become a teacher. And when she didn't have classes or after class, she would just shoot over to the prison and spend the rest of the day with me. Now, mind you, I got into the good part of my prison bit at this moment. At that time that I met my wife, I was on the rise of becoming a big shot in prison. I was around the dogs. I finally had made it in because I was so crazy. I was the guy that they could hand the shank to, and we'd go to the bathroom like a guy would come in and bring drugs, and I'd stick the shank in his neck so he'd shit the drugs out in the bathroom. Like I was working with these guys. I was building and I met my wife, and now with my girlfriend, and now I'm like, fuck, I want to be a gangster, but now I'm in love. What am I going to do? And I'm in prison. And it's not like you can just stop being who you are. That's not easy to do. I got enemies now because I've been involved in gang life and drug life in the prison system, and I built myself up. This is 12 years after being in. This is 92. I came into the prison system in New York. This is years later. And so I started talking to her. I had fights and stuff, but the more I got to know her, and the more, now my parents and my mom and my dad and my sister were in and out of my life at this point. I'm just going to go back just so I don't want anybody to think they weren't. They were a big part of my life in and out, but they also had their own life to live. You know what I'm saying? Like they had another kid. They couldn't just stop because of whatever. My mom did a lot for me for a lot of years here and there. She wasn't there every year because she had her own stuff. And there was a lot of years that I was on my own because I wouldn't contact, or they wouldn't contact, or the prison couldn't contact. But they were a big part of, and I want that to be known. They weren't, but I didn't have anybody else. And I'm sure being locked up, mom and dad are great, sister are great, but nothing's better than having your lady or whatever, It's a positive and a negative. So I started to like calm down a little bit. I had to start backing out of my prison gangster pretend life that I was. I had to try to, like, what am I going to do? I want to marry this girl. I want to get trailer visits. I mean, shit. Who doesn't, right? We'd go to the visit and we'd neck. We were always getting in trouble because we couldn't keep our hands off of each other. We were behind the glass a couple times because we got caught fooling around in the visitor room. So finally, I asked her to marry me the first time, and she was going to marry me. And she's a mama's girl and a daddy's girl. Her parents, the only thing that my wife has ever done against what her parents have told her is marry me. And man, her mom and her dad are great. Her dad passed away a little while ago, but he was a great man, and her mom's great. But yeah, so we were gonna get married, and then she said no, she didn't want to do it, and I got mad, and I was like, well, you'll have to ask me next time because I'm not gonna. And then we went to a ceremony, and my mom and my dad and my sister came up, and my wife finally saw that I had, because she hadn't met my family up to that point. We'd been together for a few years. And you got to remember, they live, to go see somebody in a New York prison, you got to drive 8, 9, 12, 100, hours. It's a long distance. My parents lived in Connecticut. They lived in New Hampshire. They lived in Vermont. They lived in South Carolina. It wasn't like, that's a long distance. So they came to a ceremony, and I don't know what it was, but it sparked her right then and there. And she said, we're going to get married. We got married. And we got married, and then they wouldn't give us trailer visits because of my record. And at the time, I had a counselor a mental health counselor, that wanted to talk to me, and I never would. And I ended up going in there and telling him what was going on, and he ended up going I needed to get ART and RSAC, which are drug programs. You have to take like a violence program. So to get a trailer visit, it's not just, hey, I get married and I get to go fuck. You got to jump through major hoops. You got to be ticket free. They drug test you. You can't have no problems. A ticket will end your trailer visits, and then you'll have to get back in, and it's forever. And let's be serious. When you're in prison, you can get pussy, or you can go out there and just have a decent meal with your mom and dad, because you can get them kind of trailer visits too. You get out of that madhouse for 48 hours, what would you do? You would do anything they asked you to do for that piece. And when I had that opportunity, I went for it, and I had to fight to get my trailer visit. So we were married for like 2 years, 3 years before we got our first trailer visit. And dude, it got to a point where I was horny. I wanted to fuck. Fuck all that. And we got to Clinton. I got kicked out of Auburn because me and her got caught fooling around in a visitor room, and then I went off and got into it with a cop over my necklace. I had my necklace with a little white buffalo as a religious thing, and I got into it with a CO, and they kicked me out of, transferred me to Clinton. When I went to Clinton, Denimora, I hated it at first. I got into a fight when I first got there, so that set my trailers back another year. And then when I finally got my trailers, my wife was 5 months pregnant with my daughter. And we almost didn't get trailer visits because the guy that ran the trailer visit program comes to my cell like a week or so before I get my first trailer. And he's like, "Hey, I got a question for you. Is your wife pregnant?" I'm like, "No." "Why would you say that?" Because I had told some people, and people can't shut their fucking mouths. They talk. Because I was going to my ceremonies, and it was in a school building, and we used to get it on in that school building. The cops didn't bother us down there; they left us the fuck alone. And we'd go in that back school building, and I had a couple friends that would hold us down, make sure they'd let us know, and we would go in that back room, and we would basically treat it like it was our own personal sex room for like 2 hours. So I got my wife pregnant. And I got my wife pregnant with my daughter in Clinton's visitor room, the old visitor room. That's the one that, cause I was there with ODB. He was there. I knew Tupac when he went through the system. I knew, I didn't like Shine. I never met, I forget what the old rapper's name was. Anyways, I knew a bunch of they'd be in the visitor room or whatever. But yeah, so my wife was pregnant when I got my first trailer visit. And really after that, I got my daughter. And when my wife brought my daughter into the visiting room for the first time, everybody came down to see, including the warden, because they watched me change from being a guy that they had to watch constantly, like this guy is going to burn the world down, to, well, this guy is actually becoming a good person. Like he's going to school. I started calming down, and like it was like she took I don't have to pretend with her. And, it don't matter. She has my back. And I've never had anybody that has she's my best friend. She really is. She saved me. I would have been dead, kid. I'd have killed myself, or I'd have OD'd because I started doing drugs when I was in prison. I started sniffing heroin. That's when heroin was like, it was heroin and not fentanyl. And I'd get grams of the shit and sniff it. We'd have parties. Prison, I'll tell you, prison in New York was wide open. The Max's wide open. Especially with drugs. Even though it was locked down. Like, I don't know what it is about us in prison, but any lockdown situation, we can still open it up like there was nothing you couldn't have. You know what I mean? You wanted pussy, you could get it from a CO. Like, certain prisons were Sodom and Gomorrah, like Auburn, that's where the money was. That's where the industry was. So everybody had money. Money flows, cash. You know how gambling, mafia guys are in there. New York's a big prison system. So, anyway, yeah, my wife really, she saved me and made me change. And then I had my daughter. I remember holding her in my hand the first time. Thinking, what the fuck am I going to do? And what did I do? I had a kid while I was in prison. I'm not going to be able to raise her. What am I going to teach her? I was so protective of her. And she used to, never been afraid of me. I'd yell at her and be like, because she'd come into the visiting room and my wife would spend the whole summer with me. So I'd see my daughter and my son. And then I had my son. I'll get to him in a second. But I had my daughter every day, all day long in the visiting room from 9 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. I'd change her, I'd feed her, we'd watch TV. I watched Ant Life 1,000 Lives.
No,
I
you're
watched
good, yeah.
Ant Life 1,000 times with her in the visiting room because I don't know how the feds are or whatever, but the visiting rooms will have TV, they'll have a
we
play
had that.
area.
Yep.
And I used to hang out in the play area with the kids a lot because I had kids because I wanted to fuck around with them and play with them. I had fun. I liked my kids. And then we had my son. My son was made. He was an oops. He was we had a moment, and my wife was like, well, come on. And, she promised to do other delectable things if I didn't. Here comes Johnny.
And the funny part is you don't let your kids live it down either.
No, I love my kids, man. Like we've had a rough time. Like I would love to go on dude, I could talk to you about this. I could talk to people about this forever. The relationship that I have with my kids, I wish it was better sometimes because it was rough when I got out of prison. Dude, you don't do 32 years. You don't go in when you're 16 and come out when you're fucking 47 and think that you're going to have a normal life. I'm 52 right now. And I am not a normal human being. And our relationship has been strained a lot because it's hard. I got out with 2 teenage kids in the middle of COVID. Never experienced what it's like to deal with a teenager when I wasn't a teenager. Like it was love. My daughter and my son love me to death, and they're loyal to me, and they're not ashamed of me. And I got to tell you, dude, I can be rough, man. I'm very outspoken. I never don't say what I feel or think. Don't really give a fuck if you like me or don't like me. I know I should probably tone that back a little bit sometimes, but you don't make it as far as I have and live all the different lifestyles in prison and go through the prison systems that I've gone through and the mental torment and be strong enough to sit here if you can't not care what people think of you. I mean, I rubbed shit on my body from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet and fought the cops for months. In fact, I had a weird smell on my skin for like 6 months afterwards. It smelled like really bad, and I had a rash. And now I've got all kinds of rashes all over my body, probably because when I was a kid, I used to rub my own poop on my body to fight people. That's how bad it was. Who would wipe shit, their own shit on their body because it makes you slippery like a pig? So I'm naked. You come in, you can't get me. You try to grab me. Once I get sweaty with shit on my body, you can't hold me down. But that's just, and then they get disgusted. Oh, he's got shit on his body. I went through some crazy shit. I got some crazy stories, but being married and being, it helped me. It helped cultivate me and get me. So that program that they had in New York, if there was a program that they could keep in prison systems, that's the program, because you can really help and change a person's life that way. Because again, you get out of the madhouse for 48 days. All you got to do is be good. Learn how to be good. Learn how to do. Even if you're not a good person, you can learn how to be good. You can train yourself to not get in trouble. Don't tell the CO to go fuck his mother. Just, how you doing, sir? Have a nice day. It don't take nothing for me to look at you and be like, all right, brother, have a safe night. That's what I started doing. I started, reversing it on him. Just be over polite. And then I was in a powerlifting. We can go down that tail another time, I'm sure. I've been here too long for you, I'm sure. I ended up going back to Connecticut in 2008. I went to 3 boards. Each board, they told me Connecticut wasn't coming to get me. I didn't owe any time. Connecticut told me I wasn't coming back to Connecticut, that my time was done. And back then I was under the old laws where you did 32 days to a year. So you had really good 10%. You had good time back then. So even off of my 25 years, I was only going to do about 12 and a half to maybe 16 off of the Connecticut. I knew, and I told my family back then, that I was going to do 37 and a half altogether, which is what I did. 32 in prison and the rest was on parole. 37, give or take. I got a few months back here and there because when COVID hit and Trump and all them signed all them bills, it released a lot of pressure on prison systems, and guys like me that had been in forever and were close enough to the board, they just kicked out. And I got kicked out. I wasn't even expecting to go home, and they were like, "Hey, have a nice day," and then I just got kicked out on the street like, okay, because I wasn't prepared as like I thought I was to be out here. Not like this, dude. This is a wild ride. So I went back to Connecticut in 2008, and I had to do 13 years, and that's when my bid became hard, like real hard. I didn't get in much trouble, but mentally, I'm gonna tell you that Connecticut, they almost destroyed my family. I went from 6.5-hour full contact visits trailer visits every 60 days. Phone calls with my wife where I could afford them. Like our phone calls would be a half hour for like $5 in New York. I went back to Connecticut in 2008. They were $25 a call for 15 minutes.
That's crazy.
Right? You remember with the I don't know if you were in when they had the Securus and this is back in the day before all the lawsuits and all
No.
that shit. Dude, the phone calls they were killing my wife. She couldn't. So they bring me back to Connecticut.
I think now it's free in Connecticut.
Now it's free in Connecticut, right? But back then it wasn't free. We're talking $1,200 a month phone bills just for my calls, maybe
That's
more.
insane.
And this is back. My wife's a single mother. She's she don't. So they bring me back to Connecticut. Now my daughter is 5, going to be 6. My son is 3. You can see in them pictures out there. That's when I went back. That's when my life ended. Then. So I go to Connecticut. Connecticut has 1 hour. They're not real contact visits. You can't touch. You can't hold hands. You can kiss, a brief kiss. And when I mean a brief kiss, I mean anything more than that, they're taking your visits from you. They don't want you to talk, really. Like, it's so restrictive in Connecticut, family-wise. There's a trailer visit program still in Connecticut, where there was when I went back. And I'm under all the old laws in Connecticut at this point. So anything that was in the prison system, I'm allowed to do from back then. Good time, even the conjugal visit program. But Connecticut won't give me conjugal visits because they're saying that I wasn't married prior to my incarceration. And I didn't make any sense because I was married before I started my Connecticut bid in New York. And back then when I went to prison, you could get married in prison and still get conjugal visits. But long story short, they wouldn't give them to me. So we didn't have that contact. Phone calls are astronomical. My daughter didn't know I was in prison. Not that we hid it, but it never came up until I was in Connecticut. And she said, "Dad, are you in prison?" And I had to tell her. My poor son, who's 3, I never really got to, at least, with my daughter, a lot of times I think I had them first 5 years. Olivia used to come running into me, "Daddy." And then my boy, I was robbed. I was robbed with him. And I know people will go, "Well, you owed that time." Yeah, I did. But I came from a prison system that they could have left me in and let me do my time there, where I was doing good. I had gotten my GED. I got vocational. I was welding bunks. I was doing this. I was fixing stuff. I was becoming a productive member of what I thought I was going to be in society, and they brought me back to Connecticut. And because I had escaped from Connecticut, this is at the end. This is 20 years into my bid, 22 years into my bid. Kid, my wild days are over. I'm an old man at this point. You're seasoned at that point. You're a veteran. I got to start a whole new prison bid and figure out a whole new prison system that everybody in the prison system is either working for the captain or they're getting ready to. Connecticut prison system is the worst mental prison system I've ever been in, and it is the worst alliance. Inmates, they don't give a fuck about each other in there. They'll tell on each other. They'll rape you. They don't give a fuck about each other. They may claim that they do, but I'm telling you, bro, they don't. And it's a cesspool of just ignorance and regenerated anger, and it's everything they do, it's to psychologically destroy who you are and separate you from your family. 13 years, I barely had any contact with my wife and kids. An hour visit, 2 hours they'd give me because they were from out of state. If I wasn't behind the glass, because they take your visits for anything and put you behind the glass on a phone. Now I can't hug and kiss my daughter and son who only know me from this environment. I get mad because I was allowed to build a fucking family in prison, and then I never did anything wrong to lose all that. And I come back to a prison system who don't give a fuck about any of that and just don't want you to have a family. They don't, man. They don't even want you to get letters. Where's the care, custody, and control in that? Where's that we're here to help you? So the Connecticut system was just a long, drawn-out fuck. So then I got out in 2020.
How much time did you serve in total?
32.
32 years.
Yeah, 89 to 2000. I got out September 28th of 2020. So about 32, 31, 32, give or take. I got to actually sit down and because it's either 31 and a half or 31 and 8 months or 32 and 6, like it's
We'll let you round up.
yeah, well, I mean it's all there. I have all the paperwork on it. And then I was on parole until last summer. I got called up out of the blue. I was on interstate compact parole, so I made parole in Connecticut on the first shot. I went in during COVID, and I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think I was going to make it. I went in, and they asked me a bunch of questions, and they brought up the assault on CO. And the guy was like, the guy's been in jail for 32 years. He's never committed murder. He's never committed a rape. The fucking kid was a kid when he did this. Let him go home. Unanimously, they were like, yeah. Because I wasn't in jail for rape, murder. I did some bad things, and I probably should have did the 25 years, 12 and a half in Connecticut and 12 and a half in New York. Connecticut, the DA in my case, the day that I got sentenced, instead of taking my case, I was supposed to go to Summers and be processed through the prison system. And what they would have done back then is they would have started running my time when I went to New York. Even though it was a consecutive bid, I was under the old laws, and back then it was about get guys out. So my time would have been running when I was in New York, even though because I would have been processed in and gotten a state number. He never did that. They transferred me back to New York the next day. So I never got processed in Connecticut. He took my case and put it in some file and left it until I was released from New York. So I went to my 3 parole boards in New York and did 6 extra years instead of getting out, at 2004, I think it was, or whatever it was, at my 12 and a half, to go back to start my 25 years in Connecticut. They kept hitting me saying, you're not going back to Connecticut because they never filed my case. So I finally CR, which is conditional release at 17-8. The day they're telling me I'm going home. They make me go through every fucking program. Program release, still in a max, but you got to do all that shit to learn that you're going home. They tell my wife and my wife, hey, come pick him up on November 13th, whatever, 2008. She's getting ready to come up in the car. Connecticut drops a warrant. You're going back to Connecticut. The DA was waiting because he didn't want me to get any special treatment. I pissed him off in that town. I pissed him off. I pissed him off when the judge was going to let me go. I pissed him off when I escaped. I pissed him off when they shut their fucking jail down because you shouldn't have had people in there. I pissed him off when I would tell people, they were torturing me in there. How are you going to put a young kid around all the predators and think that he's not going to explode or what? What were they trying to do? So I went back in 2008 and I started my 25-year sentence, and I got out in 2020, so I did 13, something like that. I went to a halfway house. When I got up to a halfway house, there was no contact with anybody. I couldn't even see my wife and kids when I got out.
Halfway houses are terrible.
Couldn't even see a wife and kids. Like, how the fuck do you get me out of prison? 32 years. Haven't seen the street since I was 16. It's different when you go in and you're 20 or 25 and you do a big bid. But when you go in and you're an adolescent under the age of 18, 16 years old, and then to top it all off, just to throw this in, I was under the youth law that they passed. That youth law where they were letting all the youth out? I got fucked over because my 16-year-old case ran concurrent with my 18-year-old case. I escaped when I was 18, and the law was for anybody that was under 18. So I couldn't even get my youth case that I had started at 16 because I escaped from prison when I was 18. So it made me an adult. So that didn't even benefit me. So I got to the halfway house and I managed it through that. I was so scared the first time I had to go out. There was nobody there to walk with me. I had my mom on the phone. I talked to her. My wife brought down the phone. I learned how to do the phone. I stayed in a halfway house room for 14 extra days because I didn't want to do any more COVID tests. They kept making us do them fucking COVID tests over and over and over. I took a COVID test to leave the jail. I took a COVID test to get in the car. I took a COVID, and then you get to the halfway house and like, take another COVID test. I'm like, no. I'm like, we'll go wait in the room for 14 days. I had a room where they kept catered food in, and I had a cell phone where I'd never had one of these before. Never. The only one that I ever had was I had one for a little while in Connecticut. I had a maintenance dude who he got caught. We all got caught. He let me use his phone every once in a while. But I got this thing and went fucking nuts, dude. Like, I learned it. Porn was, of course, number one thing. I couldn't wait to download. Dude, I spent so many hours just staring at porn. I could not believe the amount. I didn't have to steal a pornography. Dude, we had books when I was a kid. I used to have to go in and steal magazines. And I came from a prison system that had gotten rid of all porn. They got rid of all the pornography in the prison system. That was insane. Like, how do you do that? So I learned the phone, and then, I got a job. And the first job I got, that was a nightmare. Guy had me cutting trees. He was abusive. I ended up, I don't like any medication. I don't take no meds. Well, no, I take stomach pills for heartburn. I use weed for everything. I smoke it. I use it for edibles. I take a lot of edibles. Knock on wood, some days are good. Some days are bad. It's been a struggle. I could go on for hours, dude. I don't know how much longer you want me to go with this because I know I've had you here forever. Like, my story is on and on.
That's why you got to make your own channel,
I have one. I have my TikTok channel. I got 28,000 followers on it. The problem is I'm all over the place. Like, I'd like to do the podcast thing because I like to talk. And I do have a lot of I'm not the smartest man in the world, but I like to talk and I like to learn. I've been into a lot of old religious stuff as of lately, like the old stuff, the stuff that's coming out now because AI can translate, so I've been into that. And I do the politics here and there. Just because what I do is I equate everything that they did to us in prison. I'm watching them do it to you guys out here in the world. They're doing the same thing that they did to us in prison. They're systematically taking things. They're systematically making us, prime example, you go on a lockdown in a prison. The yard is open. You come back out, there's a new gate there. Always. Something's always different. Anytime they turn something on and they turn it back on, it never comes back on the same. And that's what they're doing to us out here. And that's how I get into the political, and I never got to vote before. My very first vote was the 2000 last election, the presidential vote. We couldn't vote ever. As felons, I never thought I'd be able to vote. And I was always into politics in the prison. I was in the ILC. I used to run for, whatever. But I do that a little bit. I'd rather not, because I know a lot of people get offended behind it. I don't think they should. I think it's kind of dumb. I think we should be able to talk about how we feel about, like, stupid shit that at the end of the day, my brother, I wake up every morning not chained to a floor is a good day. When you're a human being that has actually been restrained and chained to a fucking floor where people can come in and do things to you, ain't nothing going to bother me after that. So, but I definitely want to do my own thing. I just don't know how to do it. I got to a certain point. I'm kind of stuck on TikTok with my stuff. Because I don't know where to go with it. I've had people come in and say, hey, you should do this, you should do that. You'd be good if you did this. But it's not that I don't know how to do it. Sometimes it's initiative. Sometimes it's just I don't have anybody around me to help me.
Well, now you got a new friend over here.
I appreciate that. But I definitely, I have a million ideas to do this. I personally I love what you do. This is, I wanted to tell you before, and it's not to big you up, but I'm impressed with what any of you guys, you, JD Daly, them guys. I brought that other dude up that did the clown shit because that's some clown shit. And I tell you, I don't want to cause any beefs because I know these guys on TikTok with their prison beefs. I'm not here to cause no beefs, but there's a couple guys I like out there. Like I like I don't want to mention names because I don't want to. I don't know. But I like the Lucky Chucky kid sometimes. He's a dick. I know you were going to fight him, right? Were you and him going to fight?
He was calling me out.
He was calling you out. Yeah. This is what I like about him. He don't give a fuck what anybody says, and he's still doing his thing. So whatever he's doing, and he's not going back to jail. So whatever his life is, he's got. Oh, I did it again. He's got that niche, and I respect that. You did time behind prison. You did, whether you did 100 years or you did 10 days. You actually went in that cell. You know what that is. You know what it is to not have your freedom, to not have nothing but your brain in your mouth and be scared. And anybody that says that they weren't scared when you go in at that age is full of shit. So I respect it, man. You do a lot and you help a lot of people out. I don't always comment on stuff, but I do sometimes appreciate it when I'm depressed at night and I go through the videos and I can see people and I'll hear stories. I don't always like all of them. Like I told you before, I think that a lot of guys, I'm authentically me. My wife asked me and other people asked me if I was nervous when to come on here. I've never done one of these. And I'm not, because I don't have anything to hide, dude. I don't give a fuck what you think about me, man. I survived 32 years in a hellhole. Try it.
Would you do it again if you could sit with your younger self, your teenage self? What would you tell him? Would you tell him to avoid this, or would you?
I would help him navigate the system, but I got to be honest with you, I had to do it. First of all, I wouldn't have gotten my wife and my kids. I love that. I don't have not a dollar, dude. No money, but I have my wife and my kids. And I love that every day. So I have to live my life to get that, because if I don't live my life, I don't get that. So it's always been a hard question. I think what I would do is I would go in and I would try to tell that kid, hey, don't steal them cigarettes in that cell, because you're going to get beat up. You cannot sneak thief. Because I did that in the beginning. I'd do it again. I think maybe, though, if I did it again, I'd do a couple things different. Like, I think there'd definitely be at least one person that wouldn't be on the planet no more. If I was going to commit if I would go back in time and say, okay, I'm going to go to jail, I'm going to do 32 years, I would have gotten the guy that caused me the trauma that he caused me, because he lives a good life. And I don't care anymore. I'm good. But back then, I hope I can't get in trouble for that. But is that
No, you're good.
I'm good on that one?
I think you're good.
I think you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
But I know I'm not mad. I am who I am because of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like I got out, like, I didn't get out to, I got out to my wife and my kids, which was probably, I did it again, dude.
No, you're good. It's still rolling.
Which is probably, I'm probably richer than the richest man on the planet. That's how I have to. I don't always feel that way. Fuck, I'm 2 payments down on my truck when the bank is calling me like, hey, you're going to pay that other payment? I'm like, yeah. I hate my life. But I love it when I get up in the morning and I drive my wife to work. And then I come home and I got my pug. I love my dog. And I got 2 cats, Carl and Goggles. And I go into the house, and right now I'm struggling with life. I'm struggling where I'm going to go. I'm struggling. My whole objective in life before was to get out of prison. And I did that. I accomplished that. My objective when I was in prison at one point was to squat 1,000 pounds. I did that. I don't have any objectives right now. It's hard for me to see, because I'm just trying to, just waking up and being able to go outside. I went through a whole year and a half just recently where I was afraid to go outside. I just shut down. I didn't want to go outside no more. And again, I know it's all over the place, but my brain is all over the place since I've been out. I'm focused. I know what I want to do. I just don't have, for as independent and as strong-willed as I am, being a product of, I was a kid until I went to prison. So I had my mom and my dad to control my life in a lot of ways. And then I had the state to control my life. So even if I controlled what I did to a certain degree, I've never been on my own where, it's my decision whether I wake up in the morning or not. That's a tough thing to learn when you've never had to learn that. When you've never learned what a real bill is. I never learned what a real bill is. I was just in the prison. I never had to pay for, I didn't have no money, but I didn't have to worry about power, beds. Even if it was a naked bed with no mattress, at least it was not in the rain, right? So that's been difficult.
Well, John, I appreciate you coming on the show today, man. You're so good. You did such a great job.
I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate you. I do. I thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man. I'm sure the audience is gonna want to have you on again
I hope
at
so.
some
I'll do
point.
it.
And
I'll do it.
yeah, we'll have the link to your TikTok and whatever else you
Yeah,
got in the description of this.
absolutely.